There we are. This is the December 7th, 2006 meeting of the Shade Tree Commission, and the meeting is now called to order. Our first item of business is to read minutes from the previous meeting of December 2nd, and I trust that everybody did their homework and read them in advance. Ann, could you hand me one? Of course we did, Albie. But we'll take a few minutes just to make sure everybody has had a chance at them. Oh, I think on page 2, under item 3, landscape ordinance issues, number 8, trees in the plan are not shade trees. The commission recommended using larger trees such as sycamore and oak. That was the case. Were there other things?
London plane tree?
London plane tree, that was there was a, yeah, that was it. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem with sycamore. So not sycamore, but London plane tree.
Okay.
Anybody see anything else?
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
I move we adopt them.
Second?
I second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this is, I'll give, if you'll just hand that to Ron with the one correction. And nice minutes, Ron. Thank you very much. Our first item of business will be the bike path extension. We have 3 copies of this map on the table, so there'll be a lot of crinkling of paper noises for the microphones.
I'll
And
move the mic this way.
thank you. Yeah, this is nice. Jeff Maiden of RJM Engineering provided these maps to us, and the summary of the plan. Let's see, I had hoped Jeff might be here, but really he has everything on paper. So, did he?
You want to delay doing it till later?
Why don't we delay it so that we give Jeff a chance and he'll have a better shot? Okay.
So let's just move on to the next.
Yeah. That's,
Because Mike's here.
yes, and we'll just hop straight to Mike and he can be gone. Yes. Okay. So we'll be on item 3 on the agenda, which is landscape ordinance issues, and there's the Holiday Inn Express, and Mike had a little bit of excitement with my mislabeling what we were treating initially. Applebee's is not only not on the agenda, but it's planted, and people have been eating dinner there for days. The place is crowded. At least 4 days, yes. The parking lot is full. Yeah, it seems to be very, very popular. Well, the Holiday Inn Express planting, we had some recommendations for changes, and there was, let's see, for purposes of record keeping, that had the commission required all the perimeter plantings to be done at these 4 individual business sites on this East State Street area where the county engineers used to be. The landscape plan for the overall site would have required 149 trees, and we recognized the constraints of the site and didn't require that number, but even with these internal perimeters removed, there was still a shortage of about 15 trees to fulfill the requirements, and we recommended that those be planted in the area to the south of the Holiday Inn Express in a park area that Mr. Knoll already had an eye on for some potential as a landscape park with particular interest to the hotel.
The concept would be that it's really not a good place in the parks area that people could have weddings.
Mm-hmm.
And my concept would be to develop a landscape garden area there that could serve as a place for outdoor weddings for the general public. And of course, there would be some residual benefits for the hotel, of course. The cost we would incur.
I'm sorry, Mike, would you mind going and doing all that over at the microphone? My apologies.
Okay. The concept would be there's the area that's behind the lab building, the hotel, and the ball fields. It's kind of a bare, vacant area.
and taking landscaping into that area, develop a small garden area that could serve possibly as a small wedding area for people who would want to have weddings, outdoor weddings or something in that particular area. So as we get further into winter and less work in our office, we'll do a study on that and bring it to you to get your guys' input on that. I'd like to take a few of the trees, the 15, and put a couple of them around the Rotary Fountain that's in front of the community center. There are about 3 trees that didn't get planted originally there. I'm not quite sure if Kevin's got a budget this year to put the trees in, but with the constraints of cost and stuff, it'd be nice to put a couple crab apples on a couple of the planting mounds that exist, particularly the ones to the east of the fountain that were supposed to have a couple there, and I think we lost one when we transplanted also, that died on one of the other mounds too. But knowing the 4 tenants or the 4 people under development, they will all be willing to give into those plantings and stuff too. So it shouldn't be an issue at all to do that.
I think the tree commission really would like to see the trees closer to the development site.
Okay.
And-
Well, we'll probably dig up a couple extra trees, not literally dig them up, find funds for them. I've already had
spares on the
CVS. I've already had CVS agree to buy all the trees for in behind, and I haven't even gone to Applebee's or Oak Hill Bank yet, or the hotel. So that's not going to be an issue.
The other issue is that the 15 trees really should be the large shade trees, the ones you just described. We would think of as the medium size.
Well, yeah, my concern is I'd like to avoid trees any greater than about 40 feet in height. And the purpose of that is we can't have a large pylon sign located in that area, and it would be nice to be able to use the building signage for that. And so I'd like to create some visual barriers or visual tunneling to help promote the business there.
Well, certainly by grouping the trees, you could
And so that's-
achieve that. I mean, that was one thing that you spoke about before, was the idea that often groups of trees look better than just sort of stringing them out.
I
in lines.
agree, and Alvy and I talked about that because there will be certain sight lines we'd like to maintain as much as possible, so that as people driving down 50 and looking towards East State Street, that they would be able to see the signage in with that then, and that way we'd avoid requesting a large pylon somewhere on the back of the site and going through a whole bunch of hassle doing that.
And most of the trees, even the shade trees, are never gonna get huge like they would in their native environment.
Mhm.
This is compromised soil and so.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
even if the swamp white oaks and the lindens, they'll still be, I think they'd still probably work for you.
Okay, well, that's good to know. I'll give you a call and we'll get some additional input on those and when we get that far.
And I think 5 of them were going to be, were they spruce?
Can't remember.
I think, which
They
are
were
again a
recommending-
fairly columnar type
Yeah.
trees, and
They'd be perfect there.
Yeah. That would be nice, 'cause it'd be nice to create some green barriers between the ball fields and some of the other areas to create a nice breaks in the
I
appearance.
think we were thinking of a green barrier to sort of screen that building at the back there.
Oh, the
too.
wastewater treatment
The waste-
plant offices, which have.
The lab building.
they've said
Yeah.
that. Thank you.
Yeah. In that, we've got some AEP transformers that are directly behind our building, and we'd like to do some screening of those also, although we have to keep in mind that they have to have easy access into those to trip them if they would happen, or to reset them if they would trip for some kind of a power reason too.
Yeah.
But-
Okay, well, we'll look forward to seeing the plan, or you have it here, you do. have it.
Well, not on that, but I did bring the plan in on some of the others, because you had requested some of these to be changed out from the,
Yes.
Oh, yes.
from the crab apples to
Yeah, buried power
linden.
lines and open
Looks like
space.
the maple.
Let's see, what did we put in there? Little leaf lindens over here.
yes, it was to match the other side, I think.
It
wasn't it?
matched the other
Yeah.
side there, so we
Yeah.
did that there. We did keep the one crab apple here, or the green, what's that, GR. Get that straight here, here we go. The one golden crab apple here, mainly because we have a signage here for the hotel, freestanding sign, and so we didn't want that to get into the sign, so. And the rest of these trees along here are of that pattern, with CVS. And so our feeling was it would just continue on, and then once we get beyond that, develop that there. The other question was brought up was pertaining to these trees here, which are also the same here. Those trees are very cylinder-shaped tree, and for that reason was because this will have truck traffic through here.
Yeah.
Our concern was those trucks getting into the limbs, breaking them off, so we wanted more of a pillar tree at those locations. And the idea also that might create a nice arcade once you turn the corner going in there, seeing those trees at that point. So
What are they? I didn't.
they are, can't read upside down, it's been so long
Green
since
pillar
I looked.
oaks? No.
They are QP.
Some kind of
Calorie
oak.
pair. Oh,
Yeah,
no,
green-
Q or-
Green pillar oak.
Green pillar oaks.
Oh, okay, fine.
Okay. At least the landscaper told us that they grow more of a pillar shape.
Is that just the fastidious thing, the English oak?
I think it's a fastigiate pin oak.
Pin oak, okay.
So it still tends to have, you know, big.
Well, I mean,
but
once-
it's a nice tree.
but
I
what-
mean, it's really nice.
But only when they get really big. I mean,
Yeah.
initially
Yeah.
they're going
It'll
to
take
do
quite a
exactly
while.
Yeah.
what Mike wants. I think.
Yeah, they'll be tall and straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's cool.
Nice.
Great.
Very nice.
I did bring, I saw that you're looking at new ordinance, and I brought this just to show you, if you showed everything you wanted in your ordinance on one drawing,
It would look
Busy
like
could
that.
get.
it's gonna be really busy. I think
Okay.
when you have that, it's good to have this one here, but still have a separate landscaping plan to be able to read your landscaping with that. And that's often how we do it. It does help you in this particular case, for example, you can all of a sudden see, and this, we didn't show actually all the utility, yes we did, all the utility lines that are running here and there, and the ones that run over here and stuff, so there is a lot of
Well, I think
benefit.
My expectation, but maybe we need to look at the language carefully, is that there will be a set of drawings that you'd see as layers rather than just one
Just
drawing
one.
with everything on it. I mean, but we should look at that and make sure we.
It's
we're clear.
important because, we've already cut our utility lines a couple times to get to different things.
And I think
Always a surprise.
I think what prompted the initial request in your case was there's a lot of work on drainage at the back of this property, and we were concerned about trying to avoid putting trees in positions where they might get stormwater runoff and so on. So that was a concern there.
But I wanted to give you that so you did see.
Yeah, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
appreciate
That's-
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is busy.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, very good. Okay, well, I think this is something we should all at least have a little quick look at over here.
Does anybody want next?
Yeah,
I'll try that one. Mike's over there. There's 3 copies of that as well as the busy one.
excuse me. Okay. Yeah, that was nice finally. There's an area where there were buried power lines, and there's a place for tall trees again, and it's a nice repetition of that pattern. It's going to be very handsome.
Actually, those trees are planted.
Good.
As of about 4 hours ago. Including, it has been sodded, so East Park Drive is complete.
Amazing. Anybody checked into the hotel yet?
I wish it could.
They're having dinner at Applebee's at the moment. They'll be over there soon.
For after dessert. They'll go.
Need to eat slow.
That's right.
Well, not too slow. Things move fast here.
Pretty good, yeah.
Well, all right. Are there any comments on this?
No.
This is really, thank you very much. Okay. Well, we should add this to the collection of maps that Steve is archiving for us. And
Forever. Yeah.
here's the first map of Holiday Inn Express. Let's hang on to this business of the utility density.
Disney one? Yeah.
Yeah, for
That's-
just,
I think that's the one on the bottom.
sorry, thank you very much. Just make a little more noise here. Yeah, okay, well, we'll haul that out at the moment that we get to the ordinance. So, is there anything else on the Holiday Inn Express that anybody wishes to express? Mr. Knoll, is there anything else? Okay.
No.
I think,
We should have, we should have Oak Hill done for you probably after Christmas. And we'll submit that in. We do have a site plan, but we don't have the landscaping completed at this point. It'll be under construction probably April 1st, and hopefully completed by July 1st. So the whole site will be completed by July 1st of next year.
And in terms of landscaping that area, you don't need to do that immediately. In fact, we might prefer you to wait until fall, just because it was better for the trees, unless of course you're going to water them.
Well, yes, actually this whole site will have irrigation with it as well as Oak Hill, and so
Then spring
it
planting.
won't affect us at this point. So that is planned. We've already put in the underground piping to get it under parking lot areas and into the islands, and so everyone will be fully irrigated on this. So we shouldn't have an issue of waiting till fall with our trees in.
Very good. And we look forward to seeing the plan for that park that's behind the Holiday Inn Express.
Now that we may have to wait to fall, because I don't think we
Okay.
want to irrigate that.
Yes, of course, and it would be better for the trees. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Knoll. I think that, well, we've jumped around on the agenda here, and we do have Mr. Maiden with us now for
I want to apologize to everybody for being late.
It's all right, we've got lots to do. Not that we didn't miss you. Thanks. So
You
we,
want to cover that?
yeah, would you like to come to the podium? Our director gets nervous if people get too far from the microphone. So, well, we have all looked at this. And
Has everybody had a chance to look at it? Okay.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. We haven't really done a tree layout. This kind of came, we realized we had some extra money in our budget towards the end of the design process, so we came back and we've added trees, and right now, kind of our preliminary budget is kind of a similar scope as to what we did on the last bike path project. This one isn't as long. The last one was about 9,000 feet long. This one is probably closer to 6,000, 5,500 feet or something like that. And so we've got a similar amount of money set aside that we could work with those trees. I've just pretty much, with those drawings, copied what we did last time. And are really looking for input and guidance from you guys as to what you'd like to see out there. And the logical place, the bike path is running parallel to East State Street. There's roughly a 10-foot space between the edge of the concrete pavement and the edge of the asphalt for the bike path, and it runs pretty much parallel all the way out to right now, the natural termination point is where the entrance is to the Super 8 Hotel, but the developers of Holzer are working on a potential entrance farther out, where the eastbound lane ramp comes off of Route 50, and so we're developing. I don't know if you're drawing show, but we're actually we developed an alternate for that last section in our last design review meeting to bid that off as an alternate, and assuming that they get that section, they get that entrance or that entrance there at the farther out East State Street for Holzer, then we want to extend that all the way out. It seems like the natural place to plant trees would be on the other side of East State Street. That 10-foot space makes no sense to try to do any landscaping in that area, because we've got a berm there for the road and a short grassy area there. But I guess some of your ideas or something we'd like to have your input on are the type of trees. We've got a similar situation as to what we had on the last bike path project, where we've got power lines overhead, and they are off 30, 40 feet off the edge of the bike path. We've got a natural 2-to-1 slope there coming off the bike path that merges into another kind of, most of that area is just a grassy area in front of Pepsi, McBee's, all the way down through there. And so it'd be nice to add some trees and, add some character to that area. But again, we probably don't want any tall trees that are going to grow up near those power lines or whatever. And so
What right of way have we got on the south side of the bike path extension?
On the south side, that's correct. We've got a lot of utilities there too. There's really sanitary water, underground telephone, There's some gas lines, there's 2 different gas lines in some areas.
The south side is the best one to plant them on. in terms
Yeah,
of
that's
providing
really,
shade.
I think that's really our only option if we want to spot some trees down through there. I think
Then
that's-
the next thing is to, for us, I think, to walk the length of it and figure out where we think the best areas are. Look
Okay.
then at the maps and look at the utilities.
Okay, we have time on this. It's not
because,
something that has to be.
I think we're going to have to do a similar thing to what we did with the other bike path, and that is plant groups of trees. You know, we'll try and stick to our 30 feet apart, but I think there's only 80-something trees in a site that I think a quick calculation told me that if you planted them 30 feet, it'd be something like 800 trees. some enormous number. So, anyway,
You probably don't have money
the
for
other
10
thing
times
that Anne noted was that you've spec'd a 2.5 to 3 inch tree for this. Is that what we did last time?
Yeah, this is right out of the other, this was actually the design sheet out of the last bike path. And basically, that's all we did was copy it, include it in here, and so we could have this conversation and yeah.
Yeah.
We were just gonna suggest perhaps
Smaller
Yeah.
caliper?
smaller trees, if we buy more, build-
Well, I think that's possible.
The other
It's
thing
really
is
not up
if
to
there
me,
are,
but I mean, I think that from what I know about it, it makes sense. Yeah.
if there are significant slopes as well, that'll be another reason for going down in the size of tree, even perhaps to an inch, inch and a half.
And we've got some
Happens a
other
lot.
areas like where the existing parking lot is, I guess it'd be just west of Pepsi. We're gonna add another parking lot there on the other side because we're gonna lose a few spaces as we can extend the bike path around that ravine. And I guess there could be some opportunities in there. You can see we're calling to transplant or 3 of those trees that we planted last time. And
4.
there's 4 there actually.
Yeah, it wasn't clear what you are going to transplant all 4 then.
All 4, that's the plan, yeah. We show them removed, but
Yeah.
the intention is to transplant all 4 of those. And,
There was a small existing woodlot right near there with some black cherry and box elder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of crowded, but if it was thin, there's a few nice trees in there. Are you filling in that wet area, or what?
well, we're gonna have to place some fill on that slope, and so we're gonna do some pipe work and some drainage work there. But we're not gonna fill the entire ravine in. Yeah, we're gonna clean it up. We're gonna have to clear it and,
I couldn't tell what it was. I
And-
didn't see any drainage in there, really. other than-
yeah, there's a pipe that, it drains that entire hillside on the other side, on the north side of the highway.
Okay.
And so we're gonna extend that pipe out, we're gonna install 3 foot by 3 foot manhole or catch basin there. And then we're gonna turn the pipe and actually do a rock line waterway down in the bottom of that ravine. It's really irregular now, and there's a couple feet of standing water down there. So
Yeah.
we're gonna try to clean that up. There's probably, I'm sure in the summertime, there's probably a lot of mosquitoes, a lot of kind of swampy. So I guess that's the idea, to improve the hydraulics of that. And so that's an area I was identifying. We're also going to build a connector path into Lake Hope Drive Apartments there too. I don't know if you saw
Yeah,
that.
at the very end.
It's out in front of the property that, where Columbia Gas used to be, Hope Drive there,
Yeah.
those Hope Drive Apartments.
It's-
And we're gonna build a short section up to about where the office is. I guess it'd be on sheet, yeah, it's probably the last sheet.
13, no, 12 maybe?
It's
It's last.
19.
the very, very last
So we
sheet.
come back and pick that up on the
1941.
last.
Yeah.
And we've got a couple trees to remove in that area. They're gonna interfere, so we might wanna,
Just 2?
Oh, this is.
just those 2 little ones, I think, are all that's gonna come out. And I have a
We
person
can't go
who looks at
around
those
them then.
trees. We can't do it and stay within the right-of-way is a problem there.
Oh, okay.
And we got federal money, and so it takes a year to acquire right-of-way through this process typically, so. That's a problem, but,
Oh, these trees coming.
Are they okay with it?
as far as I know, yeah,
So it's
we
gonna
need to
turn
meet
up
with
and
them
go
actually.
up Hope Drive.
Okay, well,
But we can add some more trees there, I mean, we can do that, so. We have a problem showing work outside the right-of-way, so that's, we've only got about 2 feet to the edge of the right-of-way, and typically when we're doing work outside the right-of-way, they want us to acquire at least easement, permanent easement rights. I'm not sure if that applies to trees, plantings. I think it does. I think it does, yeah. So that's the biggest.
I think if there's some interest there in the trees and the landscape,
Mhm.
so I just, it'd be probably good to bring them in on it.
Absolutely, absolutely, I'm sure.
Well,
That's just an oversight on
Thanks,
our part. We'll do that, though. We'll do that.
The right-of-way that's on the other side of the road looks fairly wide. What's
Mhm.
there? Is there?
You mean on the south side?
No,
west
on
side?
as you go up Hope Drive,
Oh,
it'll
up Hope Drive.
it'll be the west side of Hope Drive.
Mm-hmm.
That.
All wooded,
It-
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a little stream, there's a run there.
Yeah, there's a creek there.
Isn't that
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Just where it comes.
Mm.
No, it's actually a private connector road that goes back to the property behind Oak Drive Apartments.
That's not the right of way though, right?
No, I was talking about the right-of-way that runs along the side of Hope Drive. It's
Mm-hmm.
it's shown here to be quite a bit beyond
I
The
think
edge
it's
of the
all
road, you
wooded,
mean?
the edge of the road.
And it's, I think that's
Yeah.
why we had input on that other.
No, he's just talking
project.
about Hope Drive
It's
right
all
away.
wooded, it's all.
That's just 50 feet right away is what that is, and it actually extends on both sides because it's on, that road is nearly centered on the right of way. We found property pins and surveyed all that. The reason it's so apparent on, I guess that'd be the west side is because we've drawn sidewalk, and there are a number of utilities in this it's pretty busy on the east side of that roadway
Yeah.
there. And but it's actually pretty close to being centered.
Is there any reason why you would choose the east side rather than the west side for the bike path?
Yeah, there's a deep, there's a creek that runs
Okay, so
parallel over
cool.
there, and it's actually pretty much, it literally comes right at the edge of the, it's not shown here, but it comes right to the edge of the drive there, so there's really no room on that side.
We have a very large sewer lift station right in that area too.
Yeah, I know where it goes to. I'm just talking about it being a wide space compared to the.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't,
What could it be used
we show the sanitary, but we don't
Looks
show the
open,
lift
but there's
station.
lots of things under the ground.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
About 5 or 6 feet.
Well,
It's as wide as this side, is that? This must be 10 feet.
well, we need to set up a time for a group of us to go walk the path. This is really what we did last time with the bike path plantings. And we need to get some flags, perhaps, to mark sites, potential
Well, the
sites.
first thing is just to walk it
Yeah.
and figure out where the best ones, and then do it again to put
Yeah.
with the flags.
That's true, we did it in stages.
Yes.
I want it all over at once,
Do you
but
know an
that's not the way it
approximate
works.
number of trees that would be in the budget, or?
It says 80 on the 81 is on the-
81, okay.
That's from the
That's what
old,
we've got set up now.
Yeah.
Like I said, we just kind of, I had a review meeting with, a week ago, and we talked about it. And we
Do-
talked
do
about
you
a similar
recall how-
size amount of landscaping as what we did before. The other thing, I guess the other issue, besides tree plantings, is, and I don't know if I need to, do we include any cross sections? We include the typical section in there for you to look at.
yes, it's in the front matter.
Instead of all these sheets of cross sections, and basically that typical section is pretty typical, really, all the way along East State Street, and everybody's probably pretty familiar with that terrain
Sorry.
out there. But I think that one of the questions is, when I look at the cross sections, there are a lot of areas where, that's very gently sloping ground now, probably 4-to-1 slope type, 4 horizontal, 1 vertical, so it's something that's easily mowed. The way we have the bike path laid out now, in order to keep the work, the earth, the filling and so forth within existing right-of-way, we've maintained a shoulder, about a 3 or 4 foot, I think a 4-foot shoulder, and then a 2-to-1 slope going down, which can be tough to mow. And so I wonder if we want to go with some kind of ground cover along that 2-to-1 slope there, where we go back down and meet the existing, or do we want to plant grass seed? I'm not sure. And maybe the property owners out there ought to have some input into that too, which right now the only occupied owner, I think, is Pepsi. And we've had a lot of conversations with them about this project and meetings with them about it.
You could use all the prairie grass plantings that we've seen in areas like this. This allows you to have an area that isn't mown at all. You would mow it along the foot of the strip, probably where the existing property owner now mows, and that would contain those species, and it would stop them being infiltrated by species that might affect them badly. And so that may be a choice that we can have at certain areas along there. And we could deal with 100 to 200 foot strips like that. I think, fairly easily, and we've got plans for that. And if you do what is not often done for this, you're going to kill off all the existing species there anyway. And so that's a good time to actually start one of these, what do you call it, Anne? I'm trying to think of it.
Prairie or early succession, a warm season?
There's prairie plantings is one way to describe it, but it's basically using native species that have been selected to go into these areas so that you don't have to mow them.
Like Indian grass and
Yeah.
purple coneflower.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
spiderwort.
And is that something that would grow up kind of high, or would that remain close?
Depends
to
what
the
you plant.
ground? That's what you want? You want them up high? Was that kind of a...
We'll watch, maybe we'll have, there might be opportunities for islands of that. We need to experiment. Those are, native
But-
grasses and.
2 or 3 feet high is probably all they would get to. So again, I mean, it's a case of choosing the sites, because obviously if you've got a property owner there that doesn't want that sort of thing in front of them, then you wouldn't want to plant it there. They're going to have to maintain the grass.
Right.
But those are
Right.
choices that you've got to make as you're
Right.
doing this to decide who's going to pay for what.
Right.
But
Okay. And we
that's-
could look at maybe lengthening that slope. We don't have a lot of time left to make those changes, but we have time. I know, my final set, stage 3 drawings are due the end of this month, and I think, I gotta go back and check, I think there's another 30-day review period, so, but it's something that,
So we should try and do any
well, we
walking
didn't
that we
think,
want to
our
do by-
estimates came in lower than what we thought. We didn't think we were gonna have the money to do this, but the way it looks now, I think we will, so this is kind of added in.
So when
At
do
the
we
end.
need to get out there and get our input?
The sooner the better. I think that's, yeah.
before the end of the month,
If,
basically.
if possible, I know it's a
Yeah.
busy time and everything, and I can check with ODOT and see if we can, submit something to, if we have that other 30 days. I'm not sure on that, I just haven't, yeah. I know they're looking for another set of drawings from me on December 31st, but I think there's another comment period and another 30 days there, so, if at all possible, I know it's, not much time, and I apologize for that. I apologize for being late, and I apologize
For wanting this early.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes, just in time, just in time.
So,
Well,
you-
look at it this way, it's kind of like you're creating this design yourself. You're being the creators of this, these ideas and these concepts.
So you guys were discussing smaller trees in general. Does that mean you could get more, and what's the
Smaller
ratio?
caliper trees mean that they cost less, and so.
So more than 81 would be
Yeah.
a number.
Yeah, so if we reduce the size of the caliper specification to 1.5 inches, we might be getting what, maybe 50% more trees?
I don't know that much. It depends who you use and
Right.
what species we pick, but
Yeah,
I mean, that'd be.
so 1.5 inches would
20.
work.
Yeah, we might have some problems from Della Drive on out. We've had a lot of, not really negotiations, but a lot of coordination with ODOT's access management people out of Columbus, because that's all limited access right away from about Della Drive down. And so where we really wanted to go with the bike path originally was there's a 25-foot strip in behind the right-of-way fence. We wanted to go within that area, which is all also owned by the state, but the access management people out of Columbus wouldn't allow that. And it's really a long story, but we had to locate it between the existing highway and the right-of-way fence. And whether they'll allow us to plant trees in that area because it's limited access highway, I'm not sure.
Have you marked that on these drawings?
Huh?
Have you marked those regions on this drawing as to where we might not be able to plant trees?
It would just be from Della Drive down. That's all limited access from Della Drive east.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can make a phone call tomorrow and check on that and find out a little bit more. I'm not sure that any one individual that might take a little bit digging to find out if that's going to be an issue. But we're doing other things down there. We're building some wood fence barrier to protect cyclists from hitting the bridge piers and things like that. We're going underneath the bridge, so maybe it's okay. There's guardrail in some of those areas though where we're doing that. So I'm just not sure if that would create a problem. Planting a tree inside that right-of-way fence might be an issue in the limited access. I don't know, but I'll check on that and find out. That might not be an option down in that area, I guess.
Okay, Della Drive, going east. May we ask you the favor of walking with us
Sure,
as a,
be glad to. I'd love to do that.
okay.
You can educate me.
So it's actually only about a third of the way along the entire length that we may be able
Mm-hmm.
to plant trees then. Because that's at 93, at
It's
934.
roughly is it about 3,000 feet there or something? 2,900 feet, if I remember right, down the Dell
For the
Drive, isn't that
others.
right?
Well, you start at 906 and you go to 934 for Della Drive.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a little bit less than, that's 28.
Well,
And
yeah.
I think the whole thing's 55. So
Yeah.
it's about halfway,
Well,
yeah.
and it may not be a problem if we're locating those trees on the other side of the bike path, you know, in that area there. That might not be an issue anyway. So we might be allowed to do that. I just kind of wanted to
Okay.
mention that, but yeah.
Is there a worry of deer predation on what you plant, or?
No worse than anywhere else on the bike path.
Oh, that's true, yeah. I was just thinking it's further out of town.
Actually, the biggest problem's the mowers.
Ah,
Yeah, it's about 3,000 feet, Dave, yeah.
We need to, shall we try to set up a time for doing this now? That might be
you want
the
to,
best.
yeah.
We've got everybody here. Is there a time during the week that you have most open for this? What
I'm pretty
days?
wide open right now.
Okay.
so.
A Monday
I-
or a Friday would get us Ann. And Ann, would it be possible this coming Monday, possible?
I'm open Monday.
Okay. Anybody else want to have let us hope it's a warm day.
So if we did in the late afternoon, could you not work?
In the late afternoon.
Yeah, I could do
3 or
late
4?
Yeah.
afternoon, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about
So-
you, Jeff?
What time is that?
3-ish? 4?
When
We
is
could do
that?
4
Oh.
if
Four.
it's-
3 is okay.
3?
Which day are we talking?
Monday?
Monday.
Oh, this coming Monday? I should be able to do that. As
Okay.
far as I know, I have no commitments. If I do, I'll call you. So it's Monday, at 3 p.m. Monday?
3 p.m.
Okay,
The parking lot?
Yeah, we'll meet at the parking lot.
okay.
And I think
The
I can
terminus.
come in.
Okay, great. Okay, we've got
I can't guarantee it, but I'll try.
we'll have a
Wear
parade.
gloves. Long underwear.
It's supposed to be 58 on
50 and oh, bless you, Ron. Can you come, Ron?
I don't know at this time.
Okay, if you can, great. So the parking lot, Eastern Terminus parking lot is the rendezvous point, 3 p.m. Monday. Okay. Thank you very much, Jeff.
Okay,
And
thank
we'll
you.
just hang on to these. So you want to be the custodian of that one?
That was my copy, that was your copy.
Oh, well,
Here you go.
give
I'll
us
get you
back.
a copy back. Let me put the paper
Thank
back
you.
in.
If I put any notes on it.
Steve has a comment here. Is this about the bike path that Jeff could hear? Jeff, hang on.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
As we've been discussing possible modifications to the landscape ordinance, it's included identification of on, under, or above ground utilities, and I think it's kind of nice when an engineer does these plans because that's the base mapping or the base work that's included. Related to that, we've had a recent
Judy.
conflict between buried sewer lines, buried utilities, and trees. And so I'd recommend that you be sure and take the utility sheet with you. So Nick Carr has some assurance that if a tree is planted close to a line, a sewer line that he has out there, that he's comfortable with the placement. We have both force mains, lines under pressure, and gravity lines out in that area that kind of alternate on both sides of East State Street. So I want Nick to have a comfort level too with
Yeah.
the location, because especially on a force, you might have more likelihood of it going bad and needing repair than you do with a gravity line, because, you know, you've got pressure mechanical devices, so it has a higher likelihood of need of repair.
Okay.
I saw a line saying G. Is that the gravity one? Because I thought there was gas was designated as gas.
The G on the map is probably gas.
That is gas, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got two different gas lines. We've got Columbia Gas in one area, and then there's a Petrox gas line as you get farther east.
Okay.
Out near Columbia Gas. So, and Steve's absolutely right. And I did mention that briefly, but I didn't really go into detail. But we do have a lot of utilities on that side of the road. We've got water, underground telephone, gas, and the sanitary's really out there pretty far from the. It looks to be 25 feet probably from the edge of the bike path. So I don't think the sanitary out in that location. The sanitary and gas are relatively far away, but it's the water line. We even got hydrants we're going to be moving. So there's places where the hydrant will be right in the center of the bike path. We're going to extend the hydrant out on the building side. Because there's really nothing on the north side of the road that the majority of that anyway, that would need fire service. So we're going to be moving hydrants, we're going to be making some changes. So James, Steve's absolutely right. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time, too, for the city to lead by example. If we're going to ask developers to provide such information here, we're really leading by example. We're providing mapping of utilities, cross-sections, topography, trying to take that all into consideration ahead of just, putting a symbol on a two-dimensional map. So,
Yeah.
like I say, I think this is a good, city can lead by example on this.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Can I add something? Can I
Yeah,
ask a
Ann,
question?
sure.
But that, we're not, just because there's infrastructure there, we're not automatically negating the possibility of planting trees. We just have to be cognizant of what species, what cultivar we use. I mean, in some of those cases, I think they're deep enough, or there might be room for small trees, that kind of thing, or?
I guess what I'm recommending is that any plan that you come up with, you run it by Nick Carr, Director of Water and Sewer. Because if he has to repair a line, it doesn't matter if it's deeply or shallowly rooted tree, or how large or small it is, he still has to move it. So, he has a different perspective, and a different priority. Not that he's, not for landscape or anything like that, but his main charge is to maintain utilities, and that's his highest concern. So just to run it by him. And maybe, too, just give him some assurance that if there is a planting close to or on a line, it's not something that's going to, the planting itself is not going to damage the utility. Of course, everybody knows the tree has to be moved if a repair has to take place. To give him probably some kind of comfort level that the tree itself is not going to create any problem with his utility.
And most of what we plant does not have aggressive roots, and we're not planting gigantic trees.
Yeah, I don't,
Species that
right.
are aggressive in the wild.
Or weeping willows.
Yeah.
Out of Bennigan's, I don't think Nick looked at the species or anything like that. All he knew was there were trees on top of his sewer line. So, but again, just to it's an educational kind of thing, an awareness thing for the utilities department too, that, trees are not bad. Utilities and trees can coexist in the same,
One of the things I'm curious about is why would they have put all those lines away from the street like that, when normally you put them under the street? It's asking for trouble, isn't it, doing that?
Yeah, a lot of times sewer lines in particular are located in streets, water lines off the street and in grassy areas because they're more likely to fail than sewer lines. And so, we're doing water repairs all the time, but we're not stopping traffic. Sewer has a less likelihood of failure.
It's actually a long way away from the street. We're looking at trying to plant trees on the south side of the bike path. That's where I see the water line existing. That means that water line must be whatever gap there is between the road and this 10-foot wide bike path, plus the 10 foot of the bike path. We must be talking 30 feet away from the road. When they did it.
8 or 9 years ago, when the second phase of East State Street widening was proposed, it had been financed and proposed right up to Long John Silver's.
Yeah.
And then with the potential Continental Properties development, from Walmart out to Lowe's, it was placed on the ballot, and I believe a bond issue was passed to finance that second section. So that design and engineering was done, at a much faster pace than was the first section. It would have been great if you could have had input 8 or 9 years ago when that was being designed, but it's in the ground now.
Yes.
The water line between the existing parking lot where the bike path terminates right now, Della Drive is almost completely under the bike path all the way. And so the water line is probably not going to be an issue that way. The utilities that we're really talking about are the gas line. Then the sanitary's out there, like Steve mentioned.
Well, the sanitary's on the other side of the street.
Well,
They're on both sides.
Oh,
On
okay.
both sides, right.
Just in
Oh, I
case.
see, yeah, there it is.
And then we have the Petrox gas line as we get out to about where Hope Drive is.
Oh, we have the,
Comes in the picture there, so. But I think he's absolutely right. It's something that
I mean, why is it that
NICAR should be.
nobody consults us when they're putting the utilities in, but we have to consult with them when we put trees in?
Timing is
There
everything.
seems to be a bit of an issue here, isn't there? It seems that the utilities are planned to exclude the trees the way that they're being done.
I think you probably have an open invitation to weigh in on any street widening or expansion programs in the future. So.
What happened in the past? That's what I'd like to know.
I don't know if they were even thinking about
We've had a
that.
tree commission for over 10 years.
Well,
Can I add too, just as an opportunity, when you look at the costs, like say they have to do a water line replacement underneath the bike path, the cost of digging through the asphalt and then replacing that asphalt in the base is surely more than the replacement of a little tree. So
Much
I think
more,
maybe
not
what
even
I'm
hardly
saying is
comparable.
we need-
You couldn't even compare it.
Oh, it's much more expensive.
Oh, sure.
to fix that asphalt, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that, I guess it's maybe what we need to do, David, is a better job of working with utility managers and helping them feel comfortable with trees. Where I came from, Dublin, Upper Arlington, City of Columbus, we thought nothing. We spent thousands upon thousands of public dollars planting on top of gas lines, water lines, with the idea that if they conflicted, those trees were gone, they fixed the pipe, and we'd come back and replace the trees later.
It's
know,
your
it was just-
opportunity for replacing trees to get the staggering in the life cycle, so that you don't have all the trees of the same age and things like that.
Yeah.
Our utilities
It's-
department, I think now, is
Yeah.
overly sensitive to the issue. And so it's something that maybe,
That's why I had to say it.
yeah, it may become more common where they really are not nearly as concerned in the future as they might appear to be right now.
no.
Especially too, because I think you guys are repairing a lot of older lines that have a lot of problems, but I think as the infrastructure is repaired, I mean, nowadays, the construction procedures are better, and you don't have those break issues, right? I mean, they're made with different materials than they were 40 years ago or 50 years ago.
Probably not as frequently as the old lines, but you still have water lines especially.
Even the plastic and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think,
We beat that horse?
yes, we have made our
Sorry.
point that trees, we can take those trees out if they don't like them where they are. We get a guided tour with an engineer to,
Next Monday, 3 o'clock.
thank you
And we'll
very
just
much.
paint all the way along. You can't plant trees here because of the utilities.
We'll find some places, even if we gotta split that bike path and plant those trees.
There you go.
Hey, it's recorded now.
No, you weren't near a mic, you're good.
Thank you, Jeff. All right.
Okay, back to item 3, I guess.
Yes, and now we have the Farmers Market Pavilion, and we have Leslie Schaller here with,
Complete with a utilities map for her trees now.
yeah, she has everything. She has,
You bring any samples?
that's right.
I know, usually I do bring food, but.
Yeah, we're getting so used to it, we just expect it
I know,
now.
you guys are spoiled.
Yeah.
So, I just have one copy. This is the most recent version, I think. Unless, maybe you have the most recent version, Steve, I'm not sure.
Is there a date on it someplace?
This is it.
Most recent version.
Yeah, Mr. Ingram and I actually reviewed this over at my office, where it showed, we identified off of this coded schedule, areas that are identified for planting, for example, number 6. Excuse me, existing fire hydrant. But you'll see some symbols here that indicate areas that could be planted.
Yeah.
And we reviewed this over at the office the other day. This is the exact same set we looked at.
Now, is this project, do they have to adhere to the landscape code?
No.
I mean, does it meet the financial, okay. So
No,
this
it's not more than a 25% expansion to existing parking.
Okay.
It's not greater than 50% improvement to the building. And it's not, there's one other threshold.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it on any of
But
them.
no, it doesn't require retrofitting.
Okay.
So, but there are landscaping elements
And
involved
as I
with
understand
it.
it,
So you
that's-
just want our,
Well, a
suggestions?
couple things. I mean, the farmers are particularly, they want landscaping, but they also want to make sure it doesn't somehow intrude in their ability to back into the pavilion. So I think what would be beneficial for me particularly is knowing what type of plantings we should be looking at. Because the other piece, of course, being the professional beggar that I am, I am going to go and talk to some of our clients who operate nurseries and see if I can get some of this landscaping donated as well.
Well, you want three trees that are gonna thrive on neglect. You want very tough urban,
Well,
Tough urban tree.
yes,
Hawthorne.
That's
thought was
got
sycamores.
street smarts.
yeah, sycamores or London plane tree.
So
Yeah,
we'll-
definitely.
I mean, it's a
Swamp
tough,
white oak is a pretty tough one.
yeah,
too.
It's pretty slow growing though, isn't it?
Very slow.
What was
growing.
the last one you said?
Swamp white oak, it's very slow. Before we even talk about trees, Leslie, I mean, since you want our opinion, I mean, the other thing is what soil you use. If it's worth planting a tree, it's worth backfilling with a decent soil mix that, and we've been advocating structural soil mixes.
And we can
They're
email
cheap.
that.
Worm castings.
Yeah, worm castings would be great.
Well, I know where I can get those.
Global
I can
warming.
send- Do you want me to send her some
Yes,
information? on
Yes,
structural
that's
soils?
what I need.
So, and the landscapers, I mean, for, some of the nursery providers at the farmer's market do landscaping as well, and so they would be versed in what kind of soils to use. But working with the other contractors that don't know soils is really, just protecting what soil might be there and not using it as a dump pile for all the garbage that's left over makes a big difference in the end.
Well, I don't think they'll have that much to dump. I mean, what's
Broken asphalt.
Well, yeah, but some of that is gonna get taken away, because the whole lot is gonna be redone.
It's
And not
important to
that-
specify
That the
it.
city is paying for that part of the project, but, the University Mall property owners will be paying for that.
I'd specify it in your agreements with the contractors that no debris, that those planting pits, and again, I haven't seen the project specifically, but, that's not, that no debris is gonna be stockpiled or stored there or left there. Because believe it or not, if garbage finds a way, it just makes it that much harder to plant when you're banging into a piece of asphalt.
On these notes, number 16 indicates new concrete curbing. And so that's going to identify then your potential planting areas.
So these are
So they
the,
haven't identified planting areas, they've identified curbing.
Okay.
See, that every
these
time
are-
you
Yeah.
see a symbol 16, you know
So
there's a
they're
new curb going in.
19 feet? Is that the length of a parking space?
No, actually, there are two
Two
parking
parking.
spaces. They're
Oh, so
probably.
there was 40 feet.
Back to
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
Ah, so you could do two.
And
You've
how
got
wide
one,
are
two,
those?
three, four. Those are
10
probably
feet wide?
9 feet wide.
Wow,
One,
that's
two,
like-
three,
that's
four,
awesome.
5, 6, 7. You have 8, 4 here, 4 there. There's one here, one here.
Another one down there, it looks like.
They're 9 by 40 if they take up 2 space.
So there's
And right now, everything's diagonal park. And this is gonna be different, vastly different, because we'll lose the diagonals. So some of the concerns from the farmers is, for instance, they're gonna back in, and everyone has different size vehicles. So what I'm worried about is sometimes the turn radius here, or the height of the tree, what they're gonna be, if there might be them clipping, lower branches as they're backing in. So even to think about, maybe what gets planted here would be different from what gets planted at,
At the far end.
other ends.
Yeah.
Well, with that kind of space too, I mean, they ideally would be maybe center, I'm envisioning just off the top of my head, 2 trees in each spot, but not right on the end.
Yeah.
Maybe ground covers,
Right.
gosh, all those great ground cover, low maintenance.
Yeah.
So what is this area right here? What are
Well,
those?
here's how, so the pavilion itself will accommodate 50 10 by 10 stalls. Now, we have over 100 market members right now. At the height of the season, we typically fill anywhere from 78 to 84 10 by 10 stalls. So we know in terms of building this for growth, we need to accommodate at least 100 10 by 10 vending stalls. So probably even year-round, there's always going to be some folks who are not going to be under the pavilion. So this is our overflow, very similar to our T formation that we do now as the season peaks. Folks will be merging out this way. And what we're thinking doing, and again, until, this is a huge, huge, huge change for many of the vendors at the farmers market. So a lot of this planning is going to be sort of trial by error. But I think what will initially happen is we'll have vendors who will back in And these spaces will be open, but we'll have vendors here and vendors here. We're also going to redo the front of this mall too. That's going to accommodate probably for more outdoor seating and umbrellas as well. So there's also talk, well, maybe we want this open, maybe we'll have vendors that face this way. But at the height of the season, there'll probably be vendors here, vendors here, vendors here, vendors here. And then we've also talked about, to accommodate additional overflow, we might not assign people in some of these middle stalls here so that we could even have other rows coming out this way.
Is this another planting area? That's, I guess, the question right there.
This-
Is that a curb area? It says 16,
Well, that's the
but-
question. Do we need this to be open for pedestrian traffic?
Oh,
So
okay.
is there a tree there and a tree there?
And a walkway.
And a walkway? Because this will be a center aisle again.
Yeah.
You know, this will be an
Like the
aisle,
overflow
this
point,
will
yeah.
be an aisle.
That would be very inviting, you know,
It'd almost be like a gateway.
yeah,
Yes.
there's,
Two trees on, one tree on each side of a walkway.
Okay.
How
It's nice.
wide is that?
That's 20 feet.
Yeah.
20 feet
Parking
wide?
stalls 9 by 20.
So each parking space
See,
is seen
you,
there.
you
It
need, you
sits
need
up
about,
the
you need
length of one
about two,
parking
2 to
is
300
20.
square feet per tree. And that will be a good sized pit. So if you could actually put a pit there and a pit there, you could then have a gateway. In other words, you can split this somehow.
That thing is
And do that.
20 by 40.
Yeah,
Because
a nice
originally, we
space.
were gonna have the gazebos here.
yeah.
And those would be there were 2 other additional structures that we were going to do, and those were gonna be the endpoints. But then we decided, well, you know, this market is growing so quickly. I mean, we're hoping as we go to additional days, that that's still gonna allow us to, and I don't wanna probably say this on camera, but maybe not everyone will wanna come on Sundays, someday in the future, like 2010, because other market days will be so wonderful. But right now, the problem is everyone wants to be there Saturday morning, because that's when, you know, it's most financially viable for them to be there. So the question is how do we accommodate the customer needs, but still have areas for growth too? Because at this point, you know, there's the diagonal here. We can't grow any further, and I don't know how much further we could really grow.
Would you
that
entertain
way.
growing along the bottom here?
We've talked about that, but I think it's just going to be, this is going to be a huge learning curve for vehicular traffic to begin with, to make their way around this huge structure that sits squat in the middle. So we're a little concerned about trying to do an extension at that end. But I think after we inhabit this for a couple years, we'll come up with some issues. The focus group work that I've done from many of the customers, they are concerned that here's the only entry and there's the other entry. A lot of people like to cut through in between the back of vendors, but vendors absolutely abhor that. You know, they don't want people coming, you know, through their stalls. And because we've sprawled so much,
Well, in
we've
that
kind of
case,
allowed people,
if you're
customers to do
only
that.
thinking at the moment that they're going to come here and here, I think you do have to open up here and here, particularly in your busy times. So I would have thought that if you could split that into 2 islands rather than one long thing, and as I say, keep it to about 250 square feet for each tree, then you should have enough.
Well, when you say islands, is this going to be a raised curb, or is this going to be?
Well, we were thinking maybe it would be ramped somehow, you know, we're not, we're still open to some of the final design
Curb is
issues.
very expensive.
Mhm.
And, you know, people, you're gonna have people hit trees, and we have curbing and we have people hit trees. I saw one got hit today by Burger King, you know, but,
One thing you
If
can
they're
do to
clustered.
mitigate against that is to think about using large rocks in that.
the Walmart
You plant-
rocks.
You plant the trees about 3 feet back from the edge, at least, and then put large rocks on
Well,
there.
we'll have rock, because
Yeah.
the building, you know, the
Yeah.
pillars will have a facade rock
Yeah,
face.
but that's one way to really convince people it isn't a good idea to run the wheels of your truck over the corner of the.
well, and I think ground covers too, if we did some shrubbery,
Yeah.
I mean, if we experimented, it is, if you really looked at the cost estimates versus curbing versus ground covers and rocks, shrubbery is expensive, but it really does make more
Well,
of a visual
but here's
impact.
the other issue. I think some of the clients that AceNet have, or some of the vendors who are market vendors, might want to sort of host an island so that they could really show off what they do. You know, so we're even thinking that maybe, Land Reformers has one, and Clearfield
Five Springs has another,
and
yeah.
Five Springs has another. There'd still be maybe uniformity in terms of the tree plantings, and then people could have, sort of subliminal advertising.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that we'll probably do on the interior of the mall, there were those funky old
Planters Islands, yeah.
So I think some of the area businesses are going to have areas inside, so it would be nice to have that kind of blend into the outside as well.
But in terms of trees, there doesn't have to be uniformity of planting.
Yeah, no.
We've suggested 3 good, I think, tough trees there and they could be planted in any sort of order
And we'll
around
get
here.
to some, I still think it might be worthwhile for us to maybe think about some ground cover, some
Yes,
shrubbery. Again,
yes.
those company, because I think sometimes we really specialize in the dogs, the toughest. We want things that are going to look great year round. And
Yeah. But if you've got people who are really interested in planting
that's
something
true.
special there, I mean,
Yeah,
as long
by
as
all
it's a
means.
large shade tree, we don't mind.
That's true.
Well, the other thing, we do want a certain amount of toughness too, because we know that pedestrian traffic, especially people, trying to figure out how to enter into this pavilion, we're a little worried about where people are going to tread. I mean, everything's going to be curbed and.
I would have assumed that you would have left deliberately a space here for people to come in.
It's because, we just, they can't, they feel like this building isn't big enough, but I don't know how I can build a bigger building at this point. So, to get those 50 stalls, those 50 10 by 10 stalls. But I'm hoping at certain times of the year, we'll have more openings there on the side.
No, what I'm thinking of is that July, August period when you've got the peak of your traffic there.
And sometimes it's just difficult to move and to get where you want to.
Right. Well, we have to change people's habits. People are going to have to shop more other days of the week, and vendors are going to have to come other days of the week.
And not talk to each other when at the market. Just stand there.
They need to linger and sit. We'll have a lot more benches and seating and that sort of thing, because we've learned since we started the Market Cafe that has had a substantial impact on spending habits. That people do spend more. They sit at that cafe, they see other people walk by, and then they go run and buy whatever they just saw going by.
Yeah, makes sense.
Or they plop somebody down, and then somebody else goes out and forages and brings everything back.
Yeah, some of us need to sit.
What's planned along the front? Because I seem to remember there were notes about landscaping.
They're doing the
front.
pillars right now.
Yeah.
So you've seen the footers being
Yeah.
dug for that, and I'm not quite sure.
What was
The have you seen the?
Yeah, I've seen the pillars, but they're,
Did you bring one with you?
Instead of food.
But it's not up against the.
It's down here.
yeah.
Right
Yeah.
along the front.
It's that
So,
green
they're
strip.
trying
Oh,
to
that's what I thought. Okay.
make this all uniform. So these rock
Why they're
pillars
there?
will be,
Okay.
there also
I was
will be
confused.
pillars in the front
Oh,
along
okay.
the tree lawn.
Oh, neat. Just
What about
Okay.
trees along the tree lawn?
Well, I think there's going to be lower stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, that was the.
No.
I think Steve,
Yeah, so
you
it doesn't
had-
block the view, I guess. Yeah.
To probably try to help you with perspective on this, you all know how far it is from East State Street up to the mall. This structure essentially extends that entire distance.
Yeah.
So it's very large, or very long. With the developer, I actually talked to Brent Hayes a couple weeks ago, when he started on construction of some work, you probably see out there now, some concrete columns that are going on across here on the property. What Mr. Hayes intends to do is to veneer them.
We'll kind of veneer them like Leslie showed us.
No, that would be very handsome.
But the big trees in between, like they could be limbed up and just frame the view into the farmer's market.
Just a detail on the.
You know,
veneer
one
that's
tree
going
blocks the
on.
whole view of the mall.
Facade type thing, yeah.
So there'll be stone veneer, as, you know, those renderings show.
Yeah.
Mr. Hayes right now intends to
How tall are they?
match that stone that's proposed for the pavilion with these columns in his building. Right now, the latest that he told me was he's considering more
This
shrubbery
increasing
kinds of
elevation
things
each
rather
time?
than trees.
Okay.
So you'll
It's
have
a-
column,
There's
and
a
then there'll be
steep,
shrubbery.
right there.
So if you could get some recommendations, you know,
Big
to me,
tall
that I could give
trees
to
that you
him,
limb
they can
up and-
coordinate with anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
you
And
might
I
be
even
doing.
have a little
Shrubs
drawing.
are gonna cost more, they're gonna need to you gotta prune them, you gotta fertilize them, you gotta mulch them, keep them.
Yeah, trees are
Trees are-
relatively
He'll
low.
change his mind. He'll want to plant trees and.
Trees are cheaper.
Probably,
There's no
he'll
wires,
want
right?
to do both, I would guess, to some degree.
Because it's, you know, planting on private property, the planning commission can advise people on what to plant. You don't really get to review anything, so if it's not associated
Yeah.
with something like this, but I'm sure Mr. Hayes would appreciate
So
any kind
that's
of
not,
input.
that's not on the public right of way then?
No.
Nope.
not what he's doing.
wow.
Yeah, it's
No,
his. It's
because
his.
years ago.
That was the one bit where
Widen it.
East State Street is not very wide.
Oh, yeah, because we had, the Farmers Market Association had raised money, and we spent 3 years trying to get permission from the mall to put trees on that tree lawn. And they never would allow us to do that, so.
Is that right? The owners of the
Right,
mall.
well, you know, it
Previous
was
owners.
going through a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Wow.
As I said, trees block the view. One tree, that's it. You can't
Yeah.
see it all.
Missed the whole mall, just
Yeah.
drive right by, can't see it.
Now, well, let's give him some recommendations of trees
Yes.
that would look nice
Okay.
out there, that would limb up and would frame.
Honey locusts would be, they're very lacy. I mean, they've open crown. I've seen them used in car lots and other malls. I mean, it's a boring tree, but
Yeah, it cleans up after itself, however. It has the polite
Yeah.
quality of a tree that
Yeah.
barely
Leaves-
sheds and things blow away.
they're very uniform too, Leslie.
Decay
And they'd
before
be
they hit the
surely
ground,
less,
it's
you
almost
know, they're easy to
practically
get. They don't drop seed, so they're not like, in case he's like, oh, those are farm trees. These are cultivated varieties that don't have seed, and really, we don't use them a lot around here.
No.
But if you go to Columbus or Zanesville, Marietta, a lot of it's probably the premier parking lot tree.
And the university uses a lot of the Shade Master honey locusts, don't they? They
yeah.
have
Where do
one
they
of
have
the-
them though?
I thought they were at the stadium at one point.
Maybe I never go over there.
That's a
I'll
wonderful
look.
name, Shade Master.
It does.
That
Makes you want
would
to
really
sort
be, I think it'd really be the icing on the cake.
Well, feel
No,
free
no.
to, you know, give Brent a call.
This is
I
Lidditz, isn't it?
pretty much talk to him daily, it seems like, so I will mention it
Well,
as
it'd be kind of like, again, maybe another argument, because I don't know that we, you know, since it's private property,
Mhm.
you know, who are we? But, you know, like if you got those pillars, then the trees like kind of fill the space. I mean, they really would frame it nice. Whereas the shrubs, you know, it keeps everything really low. They could be kind of nice accent to it, I think.
And you have to think about, as one is driving by in a car and looking out at eye level, you see past a trunk, whereas shrubs sometimes are ungainly and screen things. So this is another, from the point of view.
Create a mystery, what's behind the trees?
I'm going to work on that. Well,
Okay.
yeah, we will.
So have you got enough from us now to?
I think so, and Ann will send me more information.
Structural
Yeah, about
soils
the
and
ground covers
Yeah,
and stuff.
and maybe I'll go try and look, tell me where some of these are, and I will go get my digital camera out even.
Where the nice
take-
trees
yeah.
and why don't we send you pictures?
Send me
Do
some
you have
pictures.
an email? Could you just
Yes.
write that down?
I have DERS
It'll
with
save
me.
you from going out with your digital camera.
Yeah, yeah. And plus, you know, we have such a small urban forest compared
Yeah,
to.
right. She could
Other
hike with
cities.
us down the
Yeah, I mean,
bike
yeah.
trail.
There's not sometimes not a lot of all the little examples are still small yet, you know. So we want to jump ahead 10 years and show you what they.
And will you send a note on our behalf to Brent Hayes and recommend some trees for the front?
Yes,
as well? I mean, that would be-
I'll draft something and
Yeah.
We'll have a little round
That's a good
robin
idea.
of.
I think that's fine, I'll let Brent know.
They're just
I
ideas.
talked, I said I was coming, so.
Yeah. Well, I think it'd be nice for us to compliment him on the fact that this sort of
Yeah.
development's
You make
going
it
on.
nice.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the
All these
new paint? The color looks pretty nice.
Yeah, I think it looks
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
years. Yeah.
I mean, right now, he's trying to voluntarily match what he's doing privately with this public project, and so I'm sure he wants to coordinate the planners.
Yeah. This really is exciting.
Free advice?
Been a little bit of work, huh?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Actually, I feel like I'm closing in. I've started a Main Street project in Shawnee, Ohio, so now I'm in like this whole other world of.
They need trees too, Leslie.
Shawnee, have you been to Shawnee? Like,
Okay, don't get
I
those
need
right there. Here you
to
go.
have the whole,
Yeah, they need to go to.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much,
Yeah,
Leslie.
thank
Yeah.
you.
So neat.
Spread the word.
That should really be.
we
Maybe
will.
we should adopt, I mean, not to put this on camera, but I think we should adopt one of those islands. You know, we're always telling people how to take care of their trees. I mean, that would be, there's enough
I
to
think
go
Leslie
around.
would approve.
Yes, maybe, okay, we'll have to work
So
that
think
out.
about it, and also spread that idea around too,
Yeah, I
because
will.
you know I'll need more folks to
Mm-hmm.
want to do that.
I think I
So-
see that would be so fun to get all the I can see all the landscapers competing with one another to who have the prettiest. It's a good idea.
I mean, I think it's great advertising.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And I mean, we're really trying to turn the space around, that this is, as I always say, the parallel universe to the other side of East State Street. You know, that this is really gonna be, this is our regional flavor. This is what a locally owned project looks like.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's already the
Yeah.
Tractor Supply store. I mean, that's just not a mall thing you see very often. You know, this is so
right.
perfect.
And they
for the
came,
farmer's
they
market.
came to a large extent because of the farmer's market.
That's
I mean,
interesting.
they were just astounded, and they are now even more astounded that they're in that space and
They're
how
doing-
much activity there is. And the farmers love it because it's right there,
Yeah,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Oh, it's
great.
Good.
Thank you.
cool.
Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Leslie.
Well, let's see, I think this is
Herald
Herald Square.
Square, yeah.
Okay, we almost have a song going there.
Okay. So what do we got?
Planned unit development in a subdivision. You want to give us some details, Steve?
Diversified Properties are the developers of this property it's probably the third incarnation that they presented to the Planning Commission. And there has been some discussion between Mr. Weil and myself, and I've even talked to the mayor about it, even today at the Planning Commission. Is this project a planned unit development or a subdivision? In either case, it doesn't matter. Tree Commission has to review the plans. You had recommended, I think, in Proposal 2, some plantings for the area. John Soul, who's a principal in Diversified Properties, simply lifted those recommendations you'd made previously and indicated them on the most current proposal as the site development plan. So Mr. Ingram and I looked at it. There are some large areas in the public right-of-way there that have the potential to have plantings in them, possibly in addition to the areas that they show on the private property.
So the right-of-way, these driveways are in the right-of-way? Is that what I'm seeing?
Everybody's driveway's in the right-of-way.
Everybody's driveway's in the right-of-way.
You have to somehow connect from the public street to your private property, so. Yeah, in the case of Harold Avenue, it wanders very far off of the right-of-way, which makes, especially the Harold entrances, extended quite a bit. So there are right-of-way opportunities for planting in addition to the private
Pink on
property.
there indicates what we think will be green space where trees could be planted, because if you look at this, the only trees that are being planted at the moment are within this area here, whereas we traditionally have had trees planted every 30 feet along the roadways of either a subdivision or a planned unit development. And so there should be trees on this side and on that side over there. If you do a sort of simple number of trees every 30 feet on these two sides plus a tree for every unit, then we're looking, I think, at 27 trees there. He hasn't got quite that many there, so we could specify trees being planted every 30 feet, for instance, here, in addition to what he's got, if that's the way he wants to do it. Or we could have medium-sized trees in every one of these driveways, and count them as half and come up to, again, the 27. There are some choices as you look at this thing.
So this is off Union Street?
Yes, yes. Union Street is over here. Larry's Doghouse is about there, and then there's
Visiting
the
nurses
old
is
railroad
right
bed.
here.
Okay.
It's up at the top end over here.
And this is what, 16 units it says? Is that what I'm
It's,
seeing?
16.
3, 6, 9, 11, 16. Here's Harold Avenue, it's indicated, width of the right-of-way 40 feet. Blick Avenue over
On
there,
this side?
width of the right-of-way indicated at 40 feet. And you can see the pavement of Blick is more closely centered in
The
right
dark
away.
line is the edge of the right-of-way, and the dashed lines are the roadways on these maps.
You can see Harold Avenue actually wanders off the right-of-way. When it gets close to the end. There were lots of strange things that happened. The city's relief sewer goes right through here, but it won't affect this property. We do have some sewer lines that run down through here, storm and sanitary, and some water lines too. Again, a good reason to run it by Nick Carr, the utilities director. You can see how much longer the driveway has to be here than it is over there to connect to the actual pavement.
Wow, okay.
These buildings all face inward. The driveways come in from the back. You'll be looking essentially at the back of the building. The front will be essentially creating a courtyard type setting in the middle.
Are they required to have any public space, by the way?
You have to, in a subdivision, you have to have at least 50 lots before you have to set aside public
Okay.
area. And so we're really talking 16.
Ooh, sweet gum, they don't want that.
Well, yeah, there's a note on mine over here that should either be a sterile one or something else.
Yeah, there was
Well,
one
if
that
there's
said
no
sterile
sidewalks,
question mark.
I mean,
Uh,
if they,
And the other, well, yeah, I mean, they're nowhere near sidewalks.
I mean, in the park area,
Yeah.
Sweet Gum isn't, I mean, it's.
The other thing is
Yes, it's
Rabinia could be planted as well.
Yeah.
What's that, please?
Rabinia is one that Angela suggested was
Oh, wow.
planting in there. Because again, it's, you know, you're not at the roadway.
Yeah, we want
Yeah.
canopy.
Yeah, you want
Yeah.
canopy.
Yeah.
And as I said, there's opportunities to plant trees in every driveway if we chose to recommend smaller trees. Or they could go with some large shade trees. Because if you look at this thing in terms of how do you get to the 40% tree cover that Anne's talked about, well, you need a lot of trees in an area like this. But I think they
You'll
did
need trees on the roof.
No, you can get. Look at this one again. I made a note of what that would be. Yeah, I think it's 27 trees again. Is the sort of number you need for an area like this.
Wow. Well, let's see, we didn't really see this until tonight. We could do this in committee and make some recommendations.
Yes. Yeah. What's expected of us now in this process, Steve? Can you?
Either subdivision or PUD, they're at final approval, possibly at planning commission level. The planning commission then has to make a recommendation to city council. City council has to hold a public hearing, foregoing any suspension of the rules or passage on emergency, which won't happen. You're talking about another probably 2.5, 3 months at council, a month for public hearing. So before even final council approval could occur, we're talking springtime, summertime.
And the ordinance only requires us to give our initial approval, doesn't it? I mean.
Well, anything, I think it could move through the process, the review process for planning commission and council, contingent upon a final recommendation from the tree commission. They're scheduled to go for possible final consideration 2 weeks from today on the 21st of December to the planning commission. I spoke with John Soul tonight, and he probably wants to go ahead and do that. So, but I don't think there's pressure on you to come up with something within 2 weeks.
I think my only concern was I didn't think there were enough trees here for the size of property that we're talking about. And so I think we should ask for more trees. But I think the others should go and have a look at the site and obviously have a look at the drawings as
Yeah.
well.
And we have time.
Yeah, so we can, we will meet between now and a January meeting and try to have something by that time.
Yep, the soils there are not naturally occurring. They've been imported. That's in the flood hazard area. And so the site had to be elevated. So you might want to
That's true, it flooded.
kind of
too,
stir it
didn't
up and
Yeah, it did.
and see what may have been used there as fill material.
Is it
because-
filled now? Is it up to elevation?
Yeah, it's up very close to where it needs to be.
Okay, So people should go to visit the site, and again, it's off of Blick Avenue, comes off West Union, and Larry's Doghouse is probably the best landmark.
You can turn at Larry's or turn by the optometrist.
Yeah, the
Nitrogen
optometrist.
fixing.
Okay, we will hold on to these and go explore. And let's see, I'll maybe email around about a potential review of this once people have seen the site. We'll try to meet perhaps the first week. What is the first Thursday in January? That's our next meeting in principle.
Fourth?
4th? Oh, that's early. Yeah. So possibly, could we try to meet on Wednesday night of that week? January 3rd? With everybody having seen the site? Okay. And I offer 9 Old Peach.
January 3rd will be the committee meeting?
Committee meeting. And January 4th, Thursday, January 4th, 7 p.m. here for the, oh, okay, we will need somebody possibly not as good at taking notes as you. Okay.
We'll have Steve do it.
Okay. No.
When I used to have
That's-
to do it, I just took I did it for the zoning board, and I just took the tape home and did the minutes at home watching the videotape.
Yeah,
Because I couldn't participate and do minutes at the same time.
sure, that's fine.
And that's how Mr. Eschenbacher does it too. He comes to the meetings, but then he also reviews the video and has an audio tape that he does the minutes off of.
Okay.
Ron,
Well,
you're real good.
yeah. Well, we will issue assignments. It sounds like we may be a little stripped down in personnel on the commissioner front too. Are there any other comments on this? I've got one of the maps. Who you have
Got the
another
other
one?
one.
Okay. And we may go exploring together or something. Huh? All right. Item 4 on the agenda: trees in the right of way. Kevin didn't get a reminder early enough. I sent him a very late reminder about this, and so the West State Street ball fields, we do know that they are indeed going to replant at that site. This was the, yeah, oh, I'm sorry, we missed her. Well, there will be 20 trees planted in that site. There will probably be even more planted by the Sandlot League baseball team, and the site was, trees were taken down because there was grading of the site that needed to occur, and there's going to be some other development of a playground in the area.
Just very quickly, I don't know if you've ever been down there to walk your dog. I've been down there on occasion with dogs. And the dog park held water quite a bit and created some potential for additional problems related to standing stagnant water. So I think this is all in coordination with a plan to drain the area, make the dog park more enjoyable in wet weather. There was a lot of things that happened right there, probably without an overall drainage plan in mind, and we're just trying to go back after the fact now and dry the area up.
That's where the dog park.
No, dog park. So they're elevating parts of the dog park, or?
No, this is the West State Street ball fields.
No, what I'm saying is there's some drainage issues in that entire
general.
area. Right.
Okay.
We're trying to
Yeah.
address the entire thing. Essentially, it's just an area that was, it's adjacent to the railroad bed. As a matter of fact, right on the other side of it's where Herald Square's at.
Yeah.
Herald Square's are on the other side of the railroad tracks.
There was a concern about flooding through the bike path gap there. Is that, I remember you guys going to put barriers up, or?
We
possible
have
barriers?
we have barriers and sandbags ready now for any flood event. That
Okay.
was kind of an unusual, freakish event that happened. But we are now prepared, if necessary, to go down there and sandbag and barricade that area to preclude water from going through. What it will do, though, is hold water in this area, which
Yeah.
is in a floodplain. It's not elevated, and it really does retain water in times of flooding and in times of storming, both. So,
But the
But it-
best way to mitigate stormwater is to maintain trees. I mean, bulldozing it a lot of times just compacts the soil further and causes even more. I mean, there's nowhere for the water to really go. It's flat. So, I mean, I guess just for the record, I think that,
Well, maybe
we had some concerns.
Kevin
I
can
guess-
provide a site grading plan and any type of piping that may be going in the ground associated with
Piping?
the project.
They're gonna they're gonna do
If
anything?
any, I don't know the whole overall plan. I just know I've been in the dog park with water over my shoes before trying to walk the dog. And it would
But
evidently
that's a
cause some
different
problems for
area.
sandlot baseball also.
Okay, but that's, yeah, the dog park.
I guess what I'm saying is, and Kevin has an overall plan to drain stormwater out of that area. So,
So a lot of trees could be on the chopping block.
I think Kevin knows now before he cuts any trees, he should come to the tree commission.
Well, but I think too, a lot of times they can be damaged inadvertently by the excavation process of putting pipes.
I don't know the plan exactly. It may include that.
Yeah, a lot of that would probably tie into the new storm sewer system that was placed there about 4 or 5 years ago.
Right down by those ball diamonds, we do have a new storm sewer that runs clear out to the Hocking River. That was installed by the city to help with the OU development on West State Street, to drain that development area that they have there, where the innovation center's at, and some of those other diagnostic hybrids and some of those things. Paul, right there where you work, we put a
I
new,
used to work, yeah, I remember.
put a
Cut
new
right
release
to the river
sewer
there.
through there. So there are a lot of drainage issues on both sides of State Street, down in the park.
It's floodplain.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a good place for parks. People don't normally hang out there with.
It is one of the most highly recommended uses for open spaces and floodplains. So in that respect, that's a good place for it. City of Athens is doing the right thing down there.
Yeah, okay.
And trees aren't, there are probably trees that love that wet, those wet feet
That's some nice
down in
color.
there.
Bald cypress, we could have one with
Willows?
knees.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all right. We look forward to learning more about that. There are 2 items that are old business here and that are simply done. There were removals of, and prunings done by Mark Schumacher, and he did such a good job, he actually got a fan letter from
I did pass that on.
did you?
So glad. Oh,
Yes, and that individual really wanted that tree taken down, but he was quite impressed with the way the tree looked afterwards, and even more impressed with the fact that his yard looked better, at least in the area where Mark had been working. So Mark did really wonderful work on those things. And the other planting thing,
What were the addresses of the Schumacher removals, just so I have them?
ooh,
I could probably go back to the old minutes.
yes, they are in your last minutes. Mhm.
Ron, question, oh, sorry, can I jump in for a
Yeah,
second?
go ahead, Bob.
It occurs to me, when you were talking this Saturday about the tree damages, do you keep a log of all the trees that you remove? I mean, we have an inventory, and then, okay, no, we can do that with new business, how's that sound?
We'll do it at the end, because
Yeah,
I have
sorry.
some questions about it.
Yeah.
We might do the whole thing.
Sorry, when you start talking about removal, that's what perked up, I'm sorry to jump your agenda there.
That's all right, the agenda's kind of jumpy anyhow.
Plantings.
Plantings, Five Springs Farm did the plantings, most of which were on Court Street. There were 5 trees, I think, on Court Street, and there was one on West Union, and those were completed. In some cases, some of the trees on Court Street were trees that had been planted once or twice before, and so there is the issue of tree protection.
That's the next item I see.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so they're related, and in fact, Mason Chambers was concerned about the trees because he has planted at least one of these once before. And he put, at our request, but also it was something that he instituted in the first place, a corrugated PVC pipe to protect the trees. The newly planted ones you can identify by those pipes, and then he
In the mulch, I think you put mulch in.
yeah, and the mulch is up. Anne and you also had given us some images of ways that trees are protected in other communities. And let's see, there's 2 of them here. Go ahead.
That one on the top there is the way I think that we need to go is with these steel, iron work.
They look pricey, though.
That's what I thought.
We might be
Yes.
able to get them from, like Columbus used to use them at Ohio State, like on the High Street, and they're gonna be tearing all those out. Those are all ash trees, they're gonna go.
Oh, really?
And I think they're doing redevelopment there, so, might be an opportunity to, the city of Athens to,
Talk to
The,
Columbus.
the, the,
Yeah.
the other thing is that these
Yeah.
things are not permanent in the sense that they stay there forever. We
No.
we would move them from one tree to another.
Yeah, as they get older,
Over
yeah.
years.
That's
Yeah.
steel.
Yeah. Didn't we used to have something like that? I seem to recall having some kind
There were
of,
some grates up there that got broken.
oh, okay. That would by the parking garage, maybe.
It's
Yeah.
not necessarily the grates that we need, it's these,
The cages.
it's the cages,
Yeah.
yeah. You want to call them.
Yeah, the problem with the flat grates is the cigarette butts
Yeah.
kind of fall in between, but those kind of fit just in the mulch. You don't
Okay.
need to have the piece, the flat piece.
Okay.
There's a lot of different, that was just something I pulled off the web. There's
Yeah.
a lot of designs, and I think like through the, perhaps Ohio Municipal League or whatever kind of, I think when municipalities can talk to one another, there might be an opportunity for a sale.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I think we should aim to buy maybe 2, 3, or 4 of these things.
Just try
Just to
them,
try them
yeah.
on Court Street to see how well they stand
So-
up to the traffic there.
If I did some economics here, the cost of, say, 4 of these that you try out, and the cost of replacing a tree,
4 trees, yeah.
yeah, I saw that the saving one of these trees, what does it cost? $400,
$250 to-
$300?
$375 a piece for the
Okay,
trees
there you go.
that we did on Court Street this time, more or
So
less.
So $375, so, and I don't know what one of these things costs, but
Probably going to
Probably
be on.
new 500, I'd say.
Yeah, on that
Brand
order,
new.
but you know, you're saving a tree.
right, that's what I'm saying.
And you
It's
can
sort
use
of
it over
and
and
reuse.
over.
offsets
and they
it
are
a little bit.
reusable
Right.
because they have to be taken off once the tree gets to a certain size anyway.
What if Ron and I talked about this a little bit, but I didn't do it yet because I wasn't sure what everybody.
Seeing them now has calmed my concerns about the way that we talked on the phone. It was like we were going to have wrought iron fences around these things and people could fall on them, this, that, and other. Seeing those, that's similar to the corrugated pipe or the PVC pipe that's being wrapped up around the trunks, but a little bit more decorative.
Yeah, it's also, you would normally take it to about 6 feet. I mean, you try and plant trees there that are free of branches to 6 feet if you can, so that you can put something like this around it. And so it's not a case of somebody falling, they'll fall against it, but they shouldn't be able to fall onto it. They have to be very tall to fall onto it.
One thing that we have noticed is people have tried to remove the PVC pipe that goes around the trunks.
Burnt them in one
Oh, they
case.
burnt them in one case, yeah. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see what they would try to do with something like this, or how sturdy it is.
They're pretty solid. I've
Yep.
seen them before.
Wow.
They're
Yeah.
very solid.
Yeah, I mean, this
If
is
they can
typically sort
survive
of,
Ohio Buckeye games.
Yeah.
It's true, yeah.
this
can
reminds me
certainly
of
survive a
Leipzig,
bobcat.
Germany.
Yeah.
They don't fool around
I
when
put
it
an email
protects.
out, I just
It's
didn't
true.
want to do it
Exactly that.
before everybody talked and stuff.
Steve has a
George Enveldson, who's the Deputy Director of Development Enforcement Facilities, is also the Director of Lands and Buildings, and he's in charge of directing the landscaping crews and keeping the pits clean and maintaining trees and public lands, in specific places. I'd request or recommend that this kind of a thing be reviewed by George and also by the Service Safety Director, Mr. Hazlett, because it's going to be placement of things in the public right-of-way that we have to maintain. And they may have some other concerns or agreements, I'm not sure, but I think it'd be good to run it by them because, essentially my department and the Service Safety Director are going to be responsible for care, maintenance, and also if any damage is done to them.
Yeah, Ray did get, with Ann's help the last time, the flat grates
Oh, yeah.
that were put in place that were bought from another community.
Cleveland Heights.
Yeah.
That was the
and-
ones on college?
Sure.
This was in the infancy. I guess
Right.
what I was asking is just maybe permission to put the word out that we were looking for some, or just see if any were available, and
Yes.
like Dave said, just
Do
try
it.
it in a couple places.
Yeah, we will,
It won't work. Maybe the trees will grow fine and no one will vandalize them this time.
Okay.
Have faith, have faith.
Right now, they probably have a more highly likelihood of becoming ashtrays with the new smoking ban.
True.
Which I've already been approached by some business owners who have asked me about that. Can I put ash cans, cigarette butt containers on the right-of-way next to my business because they don't want the tree pits
I'll
and
tell
they
you
don't want
what,
the public area.
if they buy a tree
littered.
protector like this to put outside their property, we should let them put an ash can on the
On the tree protector.
on the side of the tree protector.
Surely not. But there should be some way to deal with that. We will, I will coordinate this with Ron. Perhaps you and I should touch base with Ray and with George, showing them this, and then have Ann start putting the word out that we might be in the market.
Yeah, we can wait, this doesn't, we
Yeah.
can just kind of see.
Yeah, but the
That's-
thing to
is
do
it-
is for you to go out and find out what could be available. If you can get some photographs of what could be
Yeah.
available, that again will help ease people's concerns about what these things actually look like and how they're used.
And expense, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure we can find funding for it, because we do have the beautification fund, we have the Luke's fund for $1,000 every year. So we've got some money for something like that, I suspect.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, very good. Yeah, thank you, Ann, for collecting this. The next thing, let's see, I don't know if people had, everybody had the opportunity to go down to 102 West Union.
Cafe and patio.
Where there's a cafe
took a
and
look at
patio, a very interesting site for people who do landmarks by what places used to be. That used to be a Chinese restaurant
Hop
when we
Sings, it
came.
used to be Lambs, before that was Hop Sings. I
Yeah,
think.
that, very good, very good. You,
And
there should
before
be a
that,
prize
it
for
was a
that.
garage.
Come on, you've been here a long time. So, and it was most recently,
Union Cafe.
thank
Yeah.
you. Okay, I missed that one. And they want to do a cafe there. There is a little, there's a space out to the side about 15, 20 feet wide.
It's there.
Oh, bless you.
See,
Is it that wide, actually?
and it's shown there with somebody's idea of how you could use it for parking. But
Yeah.
I think it's way too tight to even consider as a parking space, and we would lose trees if it
Yeah.
was turned into a parking space. So my view is we recommend that the Zoning Board of Appeals allow
A variance.
to retain that as a seating area, because to turn it into parking would cause a loss of a significant loss of trees in that area.
Yeah, there are two healthy pine at the very front, and
Oh, it's all black
Are they-
locust.
No, they're black locusts. aren't
Yes,
they?
think
6
it's-
black
No,
locusts.
I think they're honey locusts. aren't
Okay.
they? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Thorns,
thought it was
honey
it's
honey
the
locusts.
wrong,
locusts,
I'm
okay.
sorry, I'm
Big
thinking of another
difference.
site. Forget it.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Anyway,
Yeah,
they're good trees.
there,
I know what site you're talking about.
yeah,
but
I'm
it's
sorry,
different.
elsewhere. Yes, we almost need
Yeah,
visual
they're
things with
really
this.
nice tree. I mean, I think that's number one, that they're really in their prime. Somebody planted them, had this vision of kind of
Yeah.
creating this canopy, and they're finally doing it.
Right.
So it's,
It looks like a shaded patio
Yes.
area
Yeah.
that would be
That's a
really
good-
perfect.
Yeah, good
For
choice of
cafe.
tree. It's not going to dump a lot of litter or
Yeah.
fruit.
So the situation is they want to develop it as a restaurant or something, or?
Well,
Cafe.
Steve can probably explain what's
Do you see
happening
the-
there.
The property's been sitting vacant ever since Union Street Cafe moved up to where Gold Star Chili used to be. It was grandfathered with no parking. However, that grandfathering expired after 1 year of disuse. And so any use that goes into that building now will have to have some kind of parking variance unless some parking can be created. They need 6 parking spots, and any business that goes in there probably will need 6. They went to the Board of Zoning Appeals and asked for a variance for parking, to have none, for essentially use the street. That's metered parking in front there, 2-hour parking. There was testimony from actually John Valentour that he used to eat there and he eats up the street and he never had a problem finding a place to park. However, the adjacent property owner, who evidently had some problems when Union Street Cafe was there, and said that he had to spend, I believe he said $80,000 on his parking lot right next to that, he raised some questions. He didn't necessarily say he was opposed, but, he offered up that plan at that meeting. To my surprise, that was the first time that I had seen it. Then the zoning board, looking at parking, said, oh yeah, there is maybe the opportunity to get some parking in here instead of granting a variance. Well, I pointed out to them that a variance would be necessary anyway, even if that entire area were developed. And then I did point out to them too that any new parking had to be landscaped. In this particular case, 7,000 square feet of area, less than that, and less than 25 cars, still required the 8-foot buffer on the front, 4-foot buffer on the side, and that parking proposal would there was no way to do it. That area, there's only 31 feet wide, which is just barely enough room to
So it'd be
create
like
that parking
cutting down
scenario.
trees, creating a parking space, and then planting more trees.
Somehow.
Yeah, you would essentially have to cut
Yeah.
all those trees down there and create a 31 by 50 concrete pad, and then there would still be a parking variance necessarily for 2 parking spaces.
Did the zoning board of appeals, did they see our dialogue about it, or what's?
I have that in the zoning board case file. I'm not sure if they've seen copies of it yet or not. They essentially wanted me to find out about, work with the developer to come up with a parking scenario. I took another route. I asked the tree commission to comment. The zoning board meeting's next Tuesday. This weekend, I'll provide to them documents that I have received, and they always, before every zoning board meeting, I get things to them 3 or 4 days ahead of time, and they look at them. And I did point out to them, too, that any variances or requests granting of consolidation, because, there wouldn't be the ability to actually meet the strict requirements if you did install any parking, was in the purview of the tree commission, not the zoning board. Trying to get the idea, too, that these boards and commissions, should be working together and advising each other. I was trying to, create some process here that maybe we haven't had in the past. So I appreciate the input that everybody gave on it. I'm not sure how the zoning board will look at it. A variance will still be necessary, but if parking does go in, you'll be seeing it again because it'll have to have a consolidation approval.
But the first thing that they need is to take down the 2 healthy trees at the front, which are in the city right-of-way and over which we have some say.
Yeah.
And how do people feel about that? I gather.
Well,
I think we feel they should be saved.
Yeah, I think we either give a written recommendation, or I'm willing to go to the zoning board of appeals on our behalf and just say that it's our opinion that they should say that they should work to save the trees by giving these people a variance.
Yeah.
Even though you might not have it, pardon me? Oh, yes, the property owner wants the variance. The neighbor is the one that
Doesn't.
wants the parking.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things where we have competing interest. A lot of times it's utilities and trees. In this case, it's parking and trees. So if you could do a motion, second, vote,
Okay.
recommendation to
That
the,
is,
even though
perhaps
it may not
parliamentary.
officially be in their hands written by Tuesday, at least I can report to them that night that it has occurred. We can get it in the record.
Yeah, okay. Is there, I'm sorry, you want to ask a question?
Question, so what is going in here exactly? It's a restaurant?
Coffee shop.
Coffee shop, okay.
Yeah, the guy's just selling cups of coffee and little pastries.
Okay.
There's not going to be a whole lot of traffic. Union Street Cafe had deliveries, served meals 24 hours a day. I had a lot of deliveries going on. There won't be that same kind of traffic intensity with this proposal. Guy selling coffee and pastries. Expects most of his business to be walk-up.
Yeah.
It's a neighborhood, really. It's an old, near West Side neighborhood, and there are a lot of people who live in that area, and will take advantage of a coffee shop if it's there. But no matter what goes in, it needs a parking variance. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at a coffee shop or,
Well,
it wouldn't matter.
Parking variance.
Motorcycle shop, no, you couldn't have that in the neighborhood. Any kind of service business to the neighborhood would require a parking variance.
okay.
Okay.
So is there a motion?
I would move then that we recommend to the zoning board of appeals that they grant a parking variance for 102 West Union
I'll
Street
second
Cafe.
Seconded by John Woodrow. All those in favor?
Aye.
It's, all those opposed? It is unanimous. Recommendation that there be a parking variance,
Which will save the trees.
which was, yes, and also let us say in formal terms that what we want to occur with the status of those 2 trees out front. Anybody want, shall we have a motion on that one too? We may become parliamentary if we keep this up.
We can just tack it onto the end of the whereases for that thing. But I mean,
Okay.
I think the important thing is to get the motion in there. That,
Yes.
that
The
we've done
recommendation
it.
is that the
And then-
trees be
And
saved.
then Steve can report back to the zoning board of appeals. I can go there as well.
Right,
They
that's
wanna hear it
this
from me too.
Tuesday night, 7 o'clock.
And the intention, of course, is to have this as a patio. I mean, that's why,
Yes.
to retain it as a patio.
Right.
Was there before.
That'd be a great patio.
Yeah.
Oh, it would. It
Really-
really looks as if, they've got thousands and thousands of dollars of mature trees around that site for the perfect outdoor cafe patio. It's wonderful.
I think
And the
they
right
saw that
kind
as,
of trees.
excuse me, I'm sorry. They saw that as a great advantage for the business. I mean, it's not just grab a cup of coffee and run. You can actually linger there, have a little sense of community going on there. People, people watching, walking up and down the street, coffee. Maybe they might sell a couple extra pastries if you linger.
Yeah.
It's not all. Patios are not all bad. Some of them are. Some of them have problems.
We won't mention
Some of
any
them
other
don't.
patios.
Okay, I'll cut that one out.
All patios aren't equal.
And that one has no trees on it.
That's good, you're making the meeting more exciting.
Well, if there are no more comments on that, we will move on to the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. And this is now in its second week. We had the first inventory effort this past Saturday, and let's see, who would like to report on that? Ron's taking minutes. It seems unfair to make him do double duty, but we could. Okay.
Trying to remember what I said.
We may have you watch the tape instead.
Yeah. We started the ash tree inventory last Saturday. It was the December 2nd at 10 a.m. And we didn't get as many volunteers as we had hoped, but we still had plenty of people. I think we ended up with, 12 people? Yeah, 10 to 12 people. But anyway, we have our plan to collect trees in place, and in my opinion, it worked very well.
Yeah.
We had plenty of people walking the Far East Side neighborhoods and locating ash trees, and we did that. And the data was collected at the end of the day, and was it given to Ilgard?
Not yet.
No, well, it will be given to Ilgard, and it will be turned into a computer form. So it is. I think we'll get done with our goal of having the Far East Side done by the end of December. We
Were
can,
they marked, by the way? I know you wrote them down, but
they weren't physically marked. No.
But we're crossing off grids as we go along. So
They'd be pretty easy to locate from the data that we collected.
Yeah.
We talked about physically locating them with some kind of marker, but since they're going to be in a computer format, we don't think it's necessary at this time.
They're identified by address, and the ortho image maps, grid maps, have penciled indications also of where they are.
there may be some play in a pencil, though. I mean,
Yes, yes.
especially when the fingers are cold.
There were also some volunteers that actually took some of the forms of the maps and database collection sheets home to work on at their leisure as well. So the people that we do have are genuinely interested, and
And it's next Saturday, if
And
more
this
people want to
coming
get
Saturday
involved, is 10 o'clock,
10 a.m. this coming Saturday, December
East State
9th,
Street.
at ODNR.
Okay.
State.
And the ODNR address on East State Street is
360,
360 East State Street. So if there's anybody out there.
pond, across from Bob Evans.
Yes.
And just an FYI, there is someone from Ilgard that's doing a comprehensive study of the trees as well. She started on Morse Avenue, and I don't know what her target date is, but she is doing a comprehensive tree study.
by herself?
At this time, by herself.
Ambitious.
Very
Dedicated.
good. Anybody have any other questions for Ron? So, thank you. It was really very well organized.
Okay.
I downloaded the identification of the ash tree. I couldn't make head nor tail of the drawings or, and of course,
gotta
it
come to the
shows you the
class.
leaf. and of
Saturday at
course
10,
all the
we'll
leaves-
show you.
all the leaves around it.
That's
You will leave that day knowing ash trees, I assure you.
We hope. Otherwise, all the grids are not going to be useful.
When you close your eyes at night, you will see ash trees later that
Well,
night.
I have 2 ash trees right in my,
So you know what they look like.
Well, that's it's really working even better than we thought it would. Well, the last formal thing on the agenda is the proposed amendment for the landscape ordinance, which was sent around by email as a reminder, and I also have here some copies. Let's just divvy them out. Oopsie, that away and that away.
So it's the same as this.
Thanks.
Yeah, you already printed it out, okay. And Ron, I bet you already have it printed out too, or do you need a copy?
Here's the next one.
Yeah, you just give that to Ron. Okay. Well, this is language that was put together for us by Steve Pearson, and this is something that has come about as a result of difficulties with one particular developer and a really woeful lack of information on what was barely a landscaping map, much less a plan for the site. There was such a lack of information that it became apparent we had to have some way to guarantee that people submitted information in a more complete format. This was really valuable, the thing that Mike Knoll gave us to show us just about how dense information might get if everything appears on the same map. So perhaps we need to make some modification of the language here so that what we're asking for is
A series of.
2 maps. A map that has everything, including the utilities and the trees together to show how these things converge, but also a second map that is simply a classic landscaping map that could be handed to a nurseryman or somebody who would then plant.
You could change it, I think, very simply. In the second line where it says shall include a site plan, shall include site drawings drawn to scale indicating property lines, so that it's drawings plural.
Okay.
So rather than site plans, say site drawings,
Site
or even
drawing.
site plans, if that's explicit enough. But all you've got to do is put a plural in there, and at that point we can if they ask for advice, well, the best advice would be provide us with
Site plan drawings?
Site plan drawings will work too, but then they would be advised to present it in the form where you see several pages provided, and you could then see how it layers one on top of the other.
I'll give you an example. If you remember reviewing the campus edge plans, that something like that could be a stack of sheets.
Yeah.
So
should be.
it's as many as necessary in order to clearly identify everything.
Yeah.
Some small projects might all fit on one sheet or 2. Some projects are going to be,
But if you looked at
Several
Leslie
pages.
Shaler's drawings, I mean, she had a series of drawings there that had different things on different plans. We didn't need to look at all of them there. But,
So really what we're talking about is us getting at least 2, let's say it's a stack of various architectural renderings, so we need at least the landscaping as well as the utilities, at least those
well,
2,
but
right?
what we need is the information listed here.
Yeah.
It's there.
If it can be presented on one sheet, fine. If
Oh, okay.
it has to be presented on multiple sheets, that's fine too.
Okay.
I think the concern was that that it was being read here as if it was one sheet that was required. No,
No.
It can be multiple sheets.
And this
Okay.
is kind of neat, actually, because it really shows.
Yes. Oh, it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really useful, I mean,
Yeah.
goodness.
And that could be saved as an example for people.
my proposal was not meant to be an end-all or
No.
what I thought. It was just something to kick off the conversation.
Yeah.
And it was
Sure.
essentially something, actually, Albie, it was after you and I had a discussion about the problem property in question. And these were just all things that happened there.
Yeah.
So this may not be an exhaustive list. It may be too exhaustive. Just depends, on how you look at it. And so that's why I gave it as just kind of a kickoff to however you want to, you might want to tweak the existing ordinance.
Yeah.
Because I know that the City Council in the past has balked at having a list of existing on-site trees by species, height and caliper, because the various people have said, that's way too much detail. Well, they
that's
would
very-
say University Estates, how many trees are on that umpteen-acre site? Do you really want us to label list every tree on the, well, we might.
Like a landscaping plan.
Is there an indication where you're requiring north, a symbol north?
I saw that as a recommendation that someone had made.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty
Um,
standard.
Yeah, Mark Whitney had recommended
Well,
That
scale
should
and
be
north arrow.
added.
Yeah, let's not assume anything, I guess.
I've got it written on this north and an arrow, but it isn't in the,
Right.
Yeah,
and-
again, mine was just meant as a kickoff point.
Yeah.
right.
Well, let's assume nothing, and let's ask that there be a north arrow or an indication.
Or the orientation of the site
orientation.
is clearly indicated.
Yeah, include a site plan to scale indicating.
Property lines, buried utilities, and somewhere in there,
Yeah,
orientation,
orientation.
north, south, east, west orientation.
A lot of times it's not convenient to have north be the,
Yeah, orientation of the site.
Now, this actually,
there's a guy that disagrees, but north should always be up
Yes.
on the paper. But, you know, a lot of times if you're orienting toward a landmark or a street or something like that, north is a different direction.
but it occurs to me that this should appear somewhere in this sort of form, doesn't it, in other ordinances of the city? Because aren't people required to produce plans of this type elsewhere? Are we introducing any conflicts with any other existing?
What I'd
Descriptions.
mentioned a little earlier about, particularly about Herald Square, no matter if it's a subdivision or a PUD, the language basically says a tree plan submitted to and approved by the tree commission, and that's it. No other guidelines.
No, but what I
So,
meant was...
but you might want to make some kind of,
Yeah.
it's where we can take ordinances and cross-reference them.
Yeah.
Not necessarily duplicate language, you know.
No.
In the subdivision regs, you can say, tree plan submitted to and reviewed by the tree commission in accordance with 3705
Yeah.
or whatever the number is.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is that a lot of this information that I see here is information that presumably sewer and water would want, the fire department would want, and I'm wondering if it's already spelled out anywhere, and there is the potential that if we spell it out our way, there could be conflicts elsewhere, or do you feel that this is sufficiently general that we're not asking for anything?
Well, it would be in addition to, but not in lieu of, actual engineering plans, for example, that Mr. Maiden might do. I think it's more to give you as a lay board the opportunity to see it rather than, I mean, if you look at Jeff's drawings, I look at those kinds of things, not all the time, but on occasion, boy, sometimes my head spins just
Yeah.
looking at
guess-
them. Something more that is workable
Yeah.
for you.
I guess what I'm trying to be cautious about is overburdening people with different requirements from the different areas of the city in terms of making requests of them. And I'm sure that'll be a concern that council will have when they see this. Are we being consistent with what's required, say, by the planning commission or what's required by other groups?
But, okay, in terms of subdivision, you, in one of your emails, referenced the sections that really pertain to this, and they're very vague. I mean, they just say, submit a plan.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, you know, the fact is that the tree commission may be asking more, but the fact, you know, if the subdivision regs reference this section, then it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
When you submit, you have to provide a vicinity map. You have to actually show topography, let's say for a subdivision. You have to show existing utilities. That's going to be part of your engineering. I mean, these maps already exist.
Yes.
It's not going to be that great a burden to reproduce.
It's just bringing them here is what
Yeah,
we're trying to get them to do.
good.
And then you'll have your sheet that would also be part of another application, but it would be kept with the tree commission documents. So no, I don't think it's overburdensome, and actually, those kinds of things, are required. Existing utilities and proposed utilities. Now, they don't always all show up on the same map, but as you were saying, it might get a little cluttered. So you might have several pages to go through. I don't think it's an overburdensome thing at all.
A beautiful opportunity for a computer program. Plug in all this bits and pieces of information and just push a button. It gives you the tree commission, push another button, it gives you electrical wiring, another button.
Well, that was how he assembled that.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
he took was
Yeah, he
multiple
combined
layers of
everything.
his site, just plonked them all down on one drawing. And I think it's Anne said, it's a very, very good example of how you can do this and show a lot of detail fairly clearly. I mean, some people might think it's cluttered, but I think it does have a lot of very, very good detail there. And it is easier to see
I
sometimes.
always love how they draw the trees so big. Do you ever notice that? You know, kind of exaggerate their influence.
It's a future tree.
Yeah.
And then you found out it's 1.5 inch.
Yeah, it's just little.
What is the little trees going around that? Is that?
I'd like to see
that
them
tower?
draw in full size, actually.
What is
No,
that?
that's
And then we go around adding up, but that's the next item on the, maybe. But have we finished discussing the proposed changes? I mean, because there is something else I want to go on to with the landscape ordinance. But,
Yeah, does anybody else have any other contribution on this? I have inserted two things, which in the first two lines of type, and I'll just give this to you, Ron. Where approval of a landscaping plan is required, the plan submittal shall include site drawings rather than a site plan drawn, and so include site drawings to scale indicating orientation of the site, comma, property lines, and so forth. So just hand that.
Did you include north orientation?
No.
also?
Just
Yeah,
orientation.
just orientation.
Orientation will do it.
Okay.
And
I've been accused of being wordy, but that's the longest sentence
it's true.
It's a run-on sentence, all right.
It's true that you're the Henry
Okay,
James
and what about the
of ordinances.
second section, the installation part, 3703A?
Ah,
You want that included? That's going to be in addition to the other part, the existing.
yeah,
Part
that
of the code.
is in addition to 3703A. Where there already are indications or instructions about
Installation.
installation, pardon me, language about installation. So this is an addition, and this is basically to get people to truly do the Ohio Utilities Protection Services
Okay.
verification of what's underground.
Okay.
Basically telling them what they should do anyway.
Yeah, people should, but really they don't.
Okay, should this go to the city council sooner than later? Committee,
Sooner. Do we
planning-
want to chew on this anymore?
that's what I'm asking, I guess.
No.
Well,
I think we have.
the only other concern I've got with the landscape ordinance is that I think at some point we have to sit down and look at the requirements, particularly for smaller properties, things less than 100,000 square feet. Because as we found with Mike Knowles' properties, it gets overburdensome trying to figure out how to get all those trees into the plan. It's almost impossible. And I would prefer possibly going ahead with these things as soon as we can, and then looking at the landscape ordinance as a whole, and using some of the ideas that Anne's mentioned of having target tree coverages, you know, 40%. You work back from that, and you figure out that every site then should have, if they're going to plant in a reasonably sized tree pit, every tree, they're going to have roughly 13.6% of their land as planting space for trees. And we might have minimum dimensions that you can have for these tree areas. In other words, they can't plant within 8 feet of a building or 8 feet of a road, or you know, there'll be certain restrictions. Because one of the other problems we've hit is that when you've got this sort of thing going on, because it's required that you've got to have trees, you can't have more than 10 parking spaces in some of these interior lots. That then imposes difficulties with the navigation of the parking lot. Well, I don't really care where they put the trees in the parking lot. They can, as long as they put trees in the parking lot, that's fine by me. I don't want to have a particular prescriptive thing. So I think trying to go for something that says the lot's got to be covered by, and the trees can't be closer than 30 feet, and they can't be closer to buildings than so many feet. You know, those, I think that might be a better way to couch the language of the landscape ordinance. But I think we need to think about it longer than we need to think about this stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we should go ahead with that. But what I was hoping Anne would be able to do, perhaps, is find us some language for a landscape ordinance that's doing what I'm trying to trying to describe.
Yeah, see if other towns are doing it that
Because
way.
if you actually plot out on a graph what happens as you come down below 100,000 square feet, as you get down to about 10,000 square feet, you finish up with 100% coverage, tree coverage for the site. If you actually follow exactly what it says in that landscape ordinance.
Really?
Yes. It's amazing.
That's a good thing.
But I don't
That'll
think it's
change the
incredible
commerce.
thing, and it explains why we have so many problems.
Yeah,
and,
'cause
and we have to go
yeah.
through so many consolidation
Right.
exercises when we do all those small properties. So what I'm proposing is that we try and look at the language, and we talk with the Chamber of Commerce, because they're the people who've really raised this with us, and we see if we can agree with them language that they think will work with commercial developers in particular in this area.
Yeah, they'd appreciate the less rigidity all around would
Yeah.
be very helpful.
Yeah, I think the Chamber of Commerce, as Mr. Ingram mentioned, would be the most obvious participating partner in this. For commercial development, 1 acre is about the minimum size area that's really kind of workable for small business. And then when you talk about, and then those areas are limited where you can actually put that amount of acreage together, and most places are smaller. Then you talk about a 13 to 15% reduction in your 1 acre, all of a sudden the project's not viable, and you get these consolidation
Well, actually,
requests.
it's more than 13% when you're dealing with 1 acre under our current rules, which is, I think that's why we've had so many problems with those smaller sites.
The chamber and the developers, I don't think, they're not adverse to landscaping. They know it adds value to the property, and people would voluntarily do landscaping of some sort, even if there wasn't a requirement. But I think they see our ordinances, or the process then, as being so inflexible that everybody has to come to the tree commission. There's just no, especially on smaller lots, there's no plan that can help but come here. So I think it's a great idea, Mr. Ingram.
You can have a look and see what you can find out, and then we'll work on trying to come up with some
So
language.
just find the top 10 in the whole US.
But you went for just the small sites.
Well, no, what I
have
think
to
you
be
can do is you
consistent.
can
Or
use the
same
same rule whether it's
calculation.
big or small.
Okay.
But the objective is clear. You want a 40% tree coverage for this city. That's what we've heard is the target for a community of this type. And if you then start looking at saying, well, every tree is no closer than 30 feet, I mean, that's what we have along our streets. If you then look at the depth that we like the tree lawn to be, 8 feet, well, that gives you 240 square feet per tree as the sort of minimum hole that you're going to want a developer to use. They're not going to be planted closer than 30 feet, and they shouldn't be planted closer than so many feet to a building. And you could then, at that point, come up with a recipe that they could then look at with Steve and see if they conform or not. We wouldn't then see them. If they could see with Steve that they were conforming, it'd be a lot easier for them, I think.
Okay.
Right now, the rule of thumb that I use with developers, you mentioned one there, is 1 tree for every 3 cars. That's kind of what it works out to also. They don't necessarily mind doing that, but when they have to be contained in certain areas, that's when the problem occurs. Because it limits them so much in their development plans.
Well, just to give you, I mean, I think you guys have been so flexible and accommodating over the years. I hope that it's
But
appreciated.
the perception is that we aren't.
Well,
Yeah.
it's caused by
That-
the fact they have to come to us when
Yeah.
I think
That's
they
true.
shouldn't have to. If we could write that ordinance in an appropriate way, we could get the tree coverage that we think we should have. They would be able to get the
But
developments
aren't they
done.
getting something more by coming to you guys too, though? You know, they're getting assistance with
Oh,
good
Site
no doubt about it,
selection.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we would lose
Many
that, but I think
times
once
they
we.
are.
Well, we wouldn't necessarily lose it because we could still offer to do it.
Yeah, they could
Um,
choose to do that.
Yeah, and they still have to submit a plan. I mean,
Yeah.
for many of these larger things we see with the PUDs and so on. I mean, they're still going to have to do that. And even with the parking ordinance, we could require that a plan still be submitted.
Yeah, so there's-
But it should be very obvious to them right at the start that they're going to fulfil the requirements because they can simply calculate how many square feet are we dedicating to trees, how many trees do we need to plant, so on.
I have
Yeah,
done
that'd be
some
interesting.
permitting without the tree commission seeing it because they actually, it was very obvious they met the requirement. As a matter of fact, some developers, they showed me a small parking lot, let's say, and I went, well, where's your 4-foot strip over here? And they said, okay, I'll put the 4-foot strip in. As a matter of fact, one project like that I approved, I received a complaint that strip wasn't actually there. I had to go back to the applicant and say, where's the 4-foot strip? And then the concrete people put the form 4 feet back. And everything was fine. But those are few and far between.
Yeah. Well, it would smooth things to do it this way.
Yeah, so anyway, we'll go ahead with these 2 changes then,
Okay.
I think,
Yeah.
fairly as soon as we can.
Okay, if I get a chance, I'll bring it up to, I don't know if there's a planning development committee coming up this Monday, but I can always push it through there. Just make the amendments that you're talking about, which
Which are more
scale.
sort of bureaucratic-like things
Yeah.
anyway, really. I mean,
Yeah.
we're just trying to ease the process
Yeah, okay.
rather than radically change it.
Well, we have an other business section here, and I think we've got some other business. So,
Change the session to Ron.
is that the Ron Lucas?
Ron's business.
There was a tree at 146 Mill Street. Is that on your list?
Yeah.
Good, because that was one I was going to ask about. I have asked Steve about it.
The storm damage from December 1st, 2006, had an impact on quite a few trees. We had, at around 12 p.m., we had a number of calls to the street department to respond to about 10 trees at once. On Strathmore, I'm just going to go down and list what trees we had to deal with. On Strathmore, there were 3 trees that were knocked over. Greenbrier, there were 2 trees that were knocked over. Coventry, there was 1. Elmwood, there was a damaged tree that impeded the sidewalk. Joneswood, we had 2 trees lost. Mill Street, 1 tree lost. Southside Park, 1 tree lost. Marietta, 1 tree lost. Old Coach, 1 tree lost. Lamar, 1 tree lost. And Utah, 1 tree lost. So, as far as we know, we had a loss of approximately 4, 5, 6, 8, 14 trees that we know of. They weren't all right-of-way trees, but most of them that did fall ended up in the right-of-way, so we had to deal with them. There were 2 trees that we had removed as a result, and one of those is the one at 146, I believe. What happened is the wind blew through and actually blew up the trunk of the tree. The tree was literally splintered at the base, and it leaned over onto another tree. And it was our decision was to remove it because we didn't want it to fall on something or someone.
Yeah.
Same thing with the Southside Park tree. It fell over and was leaning up against another tree, and we decided that it was going to, if it would fall, it would hurt somebody or hurt something. It was also going to impact the power line if it would fall. So we decided to remove it. Any questions on the tree removals?
Any of them ash trees?
Most of them were spruces of some sort.
Yeah, that was what that one at 146.
Yeah, in Strathmore. that's
Interesting.
spruce. Yeah.
Yeah.
All 4 that we saw on the far east side that fell were spruces. One I noticed with Dave when we were walking around doing the ash inventory. The one on Utah Place. That one did not impact the right of way, but it did impact the property owner. Nothing to my knowledge hurt any damage significantly, did any significant damage except to a fence on a home on Strathmore. So, another thing I just wanted to bring up is that the Tree City USA application is in Ann's hands.
Oh, and
So
thank you, Ron.
The
That was,
mayor had put his signature on it, and we gathered all the data and got it to Ann. So.
yeah. That's a considerable process, and I think because it hasn't had a home for processing in a consistent fashion, that Tree City USA application has kind of languished. And this is the first time that we've got a handle on it with kind of a bureaucratic nexus of information that we didn't have before. Thanks an awful lot, Ron.
Well, I'm happy that we have included the methodology page in it, even though it wasn't required. At least that'll give us something to go back to in the event that it changes hands again. There's some method in the actual application that says this is how I went about gathering the data. So we'll have some consistency from here, I hope.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. That got a whole lot smoother. And we are now, as a result, going to be Tree City USA for something like the 17th year, I think. We're approaching 20 years of doing that. Does anybody have any other business?
I had somebody with a concern about a pine tree on Central. I forget which side it is. It's this west side of Central. They think it's too low to walk on the sidewalk. It's got some large branches. Actually, I walk that every day, and I usually duck, but that's just me.
Oh.
We try to clear them to 8 feet.
That's not 8 feet. That's for sure.
How big's the branch?
It's a fairly large. It's about 3 doors down from Good Works.
Yeah, but I mean, is it that big or is it that big?
Oh, it's about that big. Yeah.
Oh, we can prune that?
Yeah.
You talk to the property owner usually when you do that, I guess? Yes? No?
Oh.
Okay.
Well, probably one of us will prune that.
And then we'll call the street department and ask them to come and remove the.
It's got to be
the debris.
around, I forget, maybe 83 or 80 something.
Around 83.
Yeah, just walk down the sidewalk
Let me
and,
take a look at it.
About halfway to the church.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the other way that we can get these done, is that Ron's people can
Let
sometimes
me
do
take a
these.
look at it. If I can just take a set of, is it loppers or is it?
No, it's bigger than loppers.
Bigger than loppers.
A small
So
handsaw
a
will
tree
do it.
saw.
Yeah, handsaw with the, yeah. Okay, yeah.
60-second job.
Yeah,
If I
it
do
is.
it, it takes 5 minutes.
yeah.
Yeah, no big deal. Just, as I say, I just, most of the time just go under. I've never thought about it until somebody else said, you know, I'm 6 foot and I'm have to hit it, they said, you know, and at that point they were, I said, well, you know, you're right.
Yeah, we meet, we do so many committee meetings and other things, but we do try from time to time to have a pruning session in the winter, and we've done it about once a year to go out and do this kind of thing as a
Get
tree
your
commission.
loppers and run around.
Yes.
Runs
yes,
with scissors, huh?
Get in 2
Okay.
cars or a pickup and go out and saw and lop.
Sunday afternoon.
So,
On
thank
Ron's
you.
behalf, he did do that just a couple years ago, tried to systematically do the whole town to prune everything out.
Yeah, that was
That's
on
a
the street
lot.
side.
And when we had to, there were some things that.
We don't want to
some
go
people liked
there.
it, some people didn't.
Yeah.
But we were consistent.
Always.
We're back in the south side this winter.
Okay.
Okay.
That's my goal, is every other year, flip-flop sections of town.
Okay, makes sense.
Good.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, if there is nothing else, somebody care to move that we be adjourned?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Just a real quick FYI for the group. Andy Stone is back from his tour in Iraq, and he started back with the street department on Monday, December 4th. So if you see Andy, welcome him home. It's good
Yeah.
to see him.
Good to have him back.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Safe.
That means you can do more lopping.
Thinning and lifting.
Thinning and lifting, okay, that's what it is. Okay,
Yes. Well, thank you for the good news, and I think we are adjourned.
Yes.
okay.
Okay.